here, so we're going to just start from scratch. Peanuts. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bat Around. Today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. We are coming to you live from our Towson studios on a gray, overcast, rainy, remnants of Ian day here, and but it's not gonna dim our outlook on this season. So I've got good news and I've got bad news for you today. Zach, which would you like first? The good news or the bad news?
Give me the bad news first.
The bad news first is that the Mariners hit a walk-off home run. Cal Raleigh hit a hit a walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth inning last night to clinch Seattle's first postseason appearance since 2001, ending the longest postseason drought in professional sports, American professional sports. So that puts the Mariners in, coupled with the Rays' win yesterday. The Orioles have been eliminated from postseason contention. So that leads us to the good news. The good news is that the Orioles got a 2-1 hard-fought victory over the Yankees last night, and they won their 81st game, ensuring their first non-losing season since 2016. So that's the good news. Now, I'll tell you, even though I've pretty much known. So let me pull back the curtain here a little bit. We talked about the playoffs, and I was really adamant that when you get close, you got to get there, and you know how much I want it and need it now that I can smell it. You know what I mean? But I never really fully believed that the Orioles were going to make the playoffs this year. They did hold the third wild card spot for like 6 hours at one point in August, But you looked at the Orioles' schedule down the stretch, and you looked at their final 54 games, and I believe 35 of them were against teams with winning records who were postseason bound, and that didn't even include the, I think it was like 9 games against the Red Sox that the Orioles have not fared well in. I believe the Orioles at one point were 5-2 against the Red Sox, and they ended up losing the season series to them. So that wasn't good down the stretch. And I just looked at the roster, and the teams that they were playing, and also the schedule of the teams in front of the Orioles. And the writing was kind of on the wall that they were going to have to, in the last 54 games, they were probably going to need to go, 34 wins, 35 wins to have a realistic shot.
I mean, I think we looked at 89 as the number.
Yeah, we looked at 89 as a number, and if the Orioles were on pace to get to 89 wins, there's a good chance, because Tampa Bay really struggled down the stretch, and so did Seattle. There's a good chance if the Orioles got to 88, 89 wins, it would have been in there. The problem is they didn't, and we've talked about this, right? They didn't take advantage of series against Pittsburgh, against Oakland, against the Red Sox, against the Tigers. They could have swept the Astros in Houston. They could have, honestly, they could have swept the Astros in Baltimore. They won the season series against the Astros, but they could have swept the season series against the Astros. That game last Saturday was just one of the most disappointing games of the entire year. Yeah. I mean, you put together a 5-run inning, and then you give up 5 runs. You put together a 4-run inning, and then you give up 5 runs. It was a very disheartening loss, and then you go to Sunday and you have 1 hit into the 8th inning.
Yeah.
And you're down 1-0. You end up tying the ball game. You end up getting to extra innings. It's a winnable game, and you don't get the job done. Yeah. You end up splitting a series that you should have won, and honestly, you could have swept. And the problem is Toronto, they didn't lose.
Right.
They didn't lose, and when you played Toronto, they really didn't lose. You lost 5 of 7. To Toronto down the stretch here. You've got these 3 games left. I'm going to the game on Wednesday. I took advantage of those $3 tickets.
Oh, really? $3? Wow.
Yeah, but they're like right around where my seats were for my 13-game plan. So they're still really good seats.
Yeah.
And I got them for $3 a piece. And I'm hoping against hope that Grayson Rodriguez makes that start on Wednesday.
Yeah, that would be
that would be pretty sweet to end the year. Give the fans something to really feel good about going into the off season. Now, look. 81 wins for a team that won 52 last year, 110 loss team last year.
Mm-hmm.
This is the biggest turnaround in baseball history since 1899.
Is it really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you look at it, right, and ESPN tweeted this out last night, and I took a screenshot of it so that I could talk about it. The Orioles are now guaranteed, this from ESPN Stats and Info on Twitter, the Orioles are now guaranteed to finish with at least a 500 record, winning their 81st game last night. They joined the 1899 St. Louis Perfectos and 1890 Louisville Colonels as the only teams to finish 500 or better in a season after recording 110 losses in the prior season. So big kudos to the Orioles. They're going to have a 30-plus win improvement from last year to this year. It's full steam ahead going into this offseason. I'll tell you, I remember 2012, and the Orioles in 2012, they had lost for 14 consecutive seasons, 14 consecutive losing seasons.
Yeah.
And on my birthday in 2012, they're playing the Rays. And I decided, it's my birthday, I'm not going to class. I was still in college. I'm not going to class. So I go and I pick up an ex-girlfriend, and we go to the Orioles game for my birthday. And I always remember saying it took 14 innings to end 14 years of losing, because the game went to 14 innings. Manny Machado hit a walk-off RBI single in the bottom of the 14th inning on a ball that was off the diving left fielder's glove to score the winning run and give the Orioles their 81st win. And it was their first non-losing season, guaranteed the first non-losing season since 1997. And I was there. And it was an awesome feeling knowing that, A, it's only the middle of September and they have already guaranteed themselves a non-losing season.
Yeah.
And B, just being there on my birthday to see it happen. Right? So, Zach, let me ask you, what does 81 wins mean to you now that the Orioles have achieved that this year, when nobody expected them to win more than 60, 65 games?
Well, I think it's a testament to the phrase "trust the process." I mean, that's one that people have been saying, ever since 2018 when this all started. It's a great feeling, and it's a feeling that I think it's going to resonate with people for a while. No matter how next season goes, the season after, they'll know that this is the season that turned everything around, and that this is the season where the Orioles, retook, a middle of the pack stance, and now they're finally not one of the worst teams in baseball, and it's great to see. I mean, 81 wins, that's nothing to. Nothing to be sad about at all. They missed the playoffs, and they struggled a little bit down the stretch, especially the bats went a little cold, especially when the pitching got really good. The bats started to struggle. But it's a building block season, and that's I think how the Orioles have always looked at it, and how Mike Elias has always looked at it. I don't think Mike Elias went into this year saying, man, we're going to be in the ALCS or ALDS or anything of that matter. Or anything of that nature, I should say. So this is, no matter what happens for the end of the season and the fact that they missed the playoffs, it's still a very successful season. And 81 wins, and really it's going to be 82, 83, 84, no matter how many they end up getting here. You'd
like to think that they can win another game in the last 5.
Oh, I think they absolutely will. Yeah. At least I think they'll win 2 or 3, because they're going to play with fire, and they want to have that winning record, and they want to say, hey, we lost 110 games last year, and this year we're going to come out here and win and go over 500, and that's a really big success for everyone there. And I think this is going to again be the year that really resonates with everyone, and we'll look back in 5 years and say, hey, that was the year they turned it all around. So it's no matter the fact that they didn't make the playoffs this year, we didn't expect that anyway. Huge success, and I think it's going to mean a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, and it feels good.
Yes.
It feels good to not have that losing season.
Right.
But to be eliminated from the playoffs. And again, I never really believed that this team would get there this year. They had a chance, but a lot of things would have had to go right for them. They would have had to play their best baseball of the year down the stretch to get there. And they didn't. And that's okay. That's okay. And I really knew over the last 3 or 4 weeks, when they lost 3 or 4 to Toronto and then 2 or 3 to Boston in those back-to-back, they lost 5 or 7 games in that week.
And the ones you had to win.
Yeah, that's when I knew, and that was right after they blew an opportunity to sweep the A's. While Toronto was busy sweeping Pittsburgh. That's when I knew that they weren't making the playoffs. Yeah. With 100% certainty, knew that they weren't making the playoffs.
And I think through that stretch, and really through the entirety of this end of the season, we've seen the flaws. We were always kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, and I think it did on the offensive side of the ball, because we saw Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson really carrying the team on their back. And I know Cedric Mullins has had a pretty good month as of late,
and Mountcastle had a good month.
Mountcastle really rebounded from 2 very bad months. And Austin Hayes had a slightly better month. And there's guys that have stepped up for sure. But if you look at it, Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson really carried this team throughout September. And the team, as a result, kind of struggled with the bats. There wasn't a lot of great offensive performances, a few mixed in. I mean, they did score 14 on Boston the other day. But regardless, that can't happen next year. And that's something they're going to have to build off of and add more guys that can carry your team.
Well, right. And so the point that I was making is, even though I knew that the playoffs weren't going to happen, it still made me sad last night, because now you look at it and with 100% certainty that early Wednesday evening, season's over.
Yeah.
The season's over. And playoff baseball is fun. You get to watch the best teams in baseball square off and go and try and win a World Series, and that's awesome. But for me, I'll be watching the playoffs, and I'll love every bit of it, but I'm going to be counting down the days.
Yeah.
Counting down the days till that World Series ends, because free agency starts the next day, and you have a window to negotiate with your own players.
Yep.
And then it's a free-for-all. Really looking forward to the winter meetings at the beginning of December. I think the Orioles are going to be very active. It's going to start with the GM meetings in November, and then I think a lot of things will come to fruition, hopefully at those winter meetings or sometime shortly thereafter. And speaking of free agents, Jordan Lyles, he signed with the Orioles as a free agent this past offseason after going 11-11 with, what was it, 5.15 ERA last year and 180
Sounds
innings
about right.
pitched.
Yeah.
This year, career-high 32 starts. He is 12-11. 13 quality starts. What's his ERA? 4.46?
Yeah, it's right around 4.5. Yeah.
Yeah, 4.46 ERA. So his ERA is down by almost 3/4 of a run.
Yep.
From last year to this year. 179 innings pitched. He's in line to get another start. It really depends on what the Orioles do with Grayson Rodriguez, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But even if he doesn't get another start, Jordan Lyles was exactly what the Orioles asked him to be. And you can look at what happened with him getting sick on that doubleheader day and then having 2 ineffective starts in a row coming right after that when they really needed him. But then you can also look at the fact that he dominated the Tigers for a complete game, and he dominated the Yankees last night for 7+ innings. Yeah. And he gave them innings. He's tied for 10th in the American League in innings pitched this year.
Yeah.
With Dylan Cease, who's a Cy Young candidate.
I was just going to say, he has the major league lead in games started, 32.
Yeah.
So he's been there for them all year.
Yeah,
he's been there for them all year.
He's posted up, and if he hasn't been able to make a start, a couple days later, he gets back out there, right? Jordan Lyles was exactly what you paid him to be. And he's got an $11 million option for next year. Starting pitching's always at a premium.
Yeah.
Do you pick up that option? I say you do.
So I've been on the fence about this one because there have been some rough stretches. I think we've seen his flaws, but we knew coming in, that we talked about this on the show, that he's really going to give you almost an every other, where every other is a really good start, where he'll go out there and throw 7 innings of 1-run ball.
Well, it's 2 out of every 3.
Almost 2 out of every 3, and that's even better. And that's an improvement over what he was last year, and that's why the ERA has dropped from...
That's what he did last year.
Was it? Okay, fair enough.
He had 23 outings where his ERA was 3.20, and he had 9 outings where his or 7 out.
I think regardless, he's going to end up with a good number of quality starts. And that's what he did this year. He gave them a really, really good number of quality starts. And I think that's all you can ask. And when you look at the fact that pitching is a premium, and you go out on the free agent market this year and you look at the names, I think it's going to be tough to find someone better for the price. $11 million these days is almost on the cheap end, so I think that's almost a no-brainer. I mean, someone just said in the comments that he's easily going to get 2 for 32 on the market, and I think that's probably right, and that's more than that $11 million. So I would pick up that option if they can. I would.
To me, you have a bunch of unknowns next year.
Right.
We believe that Grayson Rodriguez is going to be really good. right? We believe that Kyle Bradish can take the momentum from this year and turn it into something even better next year.
Definitely.
We believe that Dean Kramer can do the same thing. What we don't know, but we don't know about any of them, and what we really don't know is what you're going to get out of DL Hall, who came in and something we totally glossed over. He got his first big league save last night.
He did.
He came in the ninth inning facing Giancarlo Stanton and Cabrera, and who was the other guy?
That's a good question. I can look it up.
So he came in last night in a one-run game, firing bullets. 13 pitches, 9 strikes, 2 strikeouts to pick up his first big league save. It's going to add fuel to stand the fans' fire that he should be a reliever.
I'm with him.
But he threw all. See, I'm not because A, he's still young. B, he has a 4-pitch mix that he can throw for strikes.
Yeah.
See, he's got a power arm, right? And you drafted this guy to be a starter, and I'm not willing to give up on him as a starter.
Yeah.
Just yet. You saw what this big league pitching staff and the player development department can do with waiver claims. You got a first round talent with that kind of arm, and you're just gonna be like, we're not gonna start him. But you don't know what you're gonna get out of him. He's been consistently throwing strikes, and you look at what he's done over his last 7 games.
Yeah.
7 2/3 innings pitched, a 104 WHIP, a 117 ERA, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts.
Yeah.
Right? 2 walks in 7 2/3 innings. You sign up for that in blood. If that's what you're getting from DL Hall, you sign up for that every time. Right? So I look at that, and Tyler Wells, they say he's going to have no restrictions. I'd rather see him go back to the bullpen than DL Hall, at least to start.
I'm probably on the opposite side of that.
You don't know what you're getting with Austin Voth.
No.
Are they going to Jordan Lyles? You know what you're getting with him.
Yeah.
You give him that $11 million option. You put him in that rotation.
Right.
And you roll the dice. You see what you've got. Now I still think that they need to go out and acquire, whether it's through trade or free agency, a legitimate starting pitcher.
Yes.
But just to kind of take some pressure off, and maybe you don't need some of these guys to start. Maybe they end up back in the bullpen. But we will see how that goes. I mentioned it briefly. I do want to talk about it. Grayson Rodriguez. He went, 5 innings in his last start for Norfolk.
He did go 5. Yep.
He struck out 7, gave up, 1 run, 2 runs?
I think it was 1.
Yeah.
He had a good start.
Norfolk season's over.
Yes.
Do you think Grayson Rodriguez will get 1 start in Baltimore this coming week against Toronto?
Yeah, everyone's been talking about it. I was a skeptic. I think I said, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that I want to see Grayson Rodriguez, just kind of be slow played for the rest of the year this year, and then come out next year, spring training, full steam ahead, get him in the rotation, and let him take 2023 by storm. That was kind of what I wanted for Grayson. Now that the Orioles are out of the playoff picture, I wouldn't mind seeing him. I don't think it's going to be a totally destructive thing. I want to make sure that I don't know if they have inning restrictions on him at this point. If he's still, if he's capped at 5 innings, that would be maybe a little bit of a concern. Maybe you want to just let him rest for the rest of the year. But I think regardless, he's probably going to throw some kind of bullpen anyway because Norfolk is done and that he's going to have to throw this many innings next year, so he's probably going to have to build up to that. I think they'll have him throw in some capacity anyway, whether it's in a game situation or not. So I think it's probably a pretty good chance he comes up and makes a start. It's just whether they want to save him or not.
Yeah. I think you reward him for a good season.
Okay.
I think you reward him for a good season, and you give him a start. You give the fans one last thing to come and root for at the end of the year. I think that you should reward him on Wednesday when I'm there with my best friend watching the game. Orioles lineup is out. They're facing Nestor Cortez, who's a lefty. So guess who's not in the lineup again, despite hitting a home run off a lefty the other day?
Pretty obvious.
And didn't Brandon Hyde say he'd let him bat? He would play him more?
He did say. We're talking about Kyle Stowers. Yeah,
if they were out of it.
Yeah.
And so Kyle Stowers not in the lineup against Nestor Cortez. Your lineup is Gunnar Henderson leading off, playing third base. Ryan Mountcastle batting second, playing first base. Adley Rutschman batting third, DHing. Austin Hayes batting fourth for some reason, playing right field. What does he have? 3 home runs in the second half. Let's bat him fourth. Ryan McKenna.
Sounds about right.
Ryan McKenna batting fifth,
Oy.
playing left field. Cedric Mullins batting 6th, playing center field. Jorge Mateo batting 7th, playing shortstop. Rufnet Odor batting 8th, playing second base. Robinson Chirinos batting 9th and catching. Look, I don't give 2 flying Fs about what lineup Brandon Hyde wants to put out at the end of the year when the Orioles are out of playoff contention, with the exception being that you lied.
Yeah.
You said if we were out of contention, I'd be playing Stowers against left-handed pitching.
Right.
You're out of contention. You're officially out of contention.
Yeah.
You're facing a lefty, and Kyle Stowers isn't in the lineup.
And again, this is not something you want to find out next year. You don't want to find out if Kyle Stowers can hit him.
He has 2 at-bats against 2 plate appearances against left-handed pitching this year. A hit by pitch and a home run.
1,000 on base.
Yeah. What is that? That's a 4,000 OPS.
Yeah.
That's a 4,000 OPS. So what are we doing? What are we doing here? And the fact that, okay, you want to give Santander's earned a day off. He's only missed 9 games this year. Okay, that's fine. Reward him for a healthy season by giving him a day off here before you let him play the last few games and see if he can really pad his stats, right?
Sure.
Cedric Mullins is batting 200 against left-handed pitching. He's batting 6. Ryan McKenna, he's Ryan McKenna.
Yeah.
You want to play him fine, but why is he batting 5th?
He's an 8 or 9 guy.
Why is Austin Hayes, who has hit, I think, 3 home runs in the second half, why is he batting 4th?
It's a great question. It's a bad lineup construction. That's what it is.
We got to get Stan the Fan Charles on the line here. Today's show, I want to remind you, is brought to you by the Guilford Hall Brewery. Have you been there? Have you been to the Guilford Hall Brewery? It's located in Baltimore Station North neighborhood. Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. You can join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. And make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. So go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. That's Guilford Hall Brewery, 1611 Guilford Avenue in Station North. Joining us on the line now, he is a mentor of sorts to me, and he's here every week. He is Stan the Fan Charles, and he's live with us here on the Batter Round. Stan, good morning. How are you today?
I'm good, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm sad that the Orioles are officially eliminated from playoff contention, but happy that they've guaranteed their first non-losing season since 2016. How big of a hurdle is it for the team to get over that hump and know that they are not going to have that losing season this year?
I think it's an important. It's an important piece in 2 different ways. One literally that they actually got over 500, and the second that they know they can do that. I think it's an important thing to get out of the way when you're in the middle of a rebuild.
No, I agree. Now, what I do want to know, Stan, is I was saying at the beginning of the show that I've kind of known that this team wasn't going to make the playoffs this year, and especially over the last 3 to 4 weeks, it really set in. They're not going to the playoffs. But it still was heartbreaking to see. As an Orioles fan, you're happy to see the Mariners break the longest playoff drought in American professional sports last night, but you're disappointed that your team is officially eliminated. You've been doing this a really long time. Do you still get that, oh, man, when the Orioles are finally eliminated from playoff contention?
I got to be honest with you, Paul. From 1998 till 2000 through 2011, the club was virtually never in a pennant race.
Right.
It was like 14 seasons. And then they had that little nice run with Buck Showalter at the helm and Dan Duquette. And I'm absolutely thrilled that this team became this good this quick. I don't kid myself. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Sure.
They still got some areas to shore up, but I like where they're at right now.
Yeah. No, I think we all do. It can still be a little disheartening when you see them finally eliminated from playoff contention, especially when they've been playing so well for a good part of this season. Now, last night, the Orioles, they get that win, 2-1 hard-fought victory over the Yankees. Jordan Lyles goes out, gives them 7 solid innings of 1-run ball, strikes out a season-high 9 batters. And then DL Hall, Stan, adds fuel to your fire. He comes in and he gets his first big league save in dominating fashion. He strikes out 2 in a 1-2-3 ninth. He throws 9 of 13 pitches for strikes. His last seven games exclusively out of the bullpen, 7 2/3 innings pitched, 6 hits, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts. That's a 1.17 ERA because he's allowed just a 1 run and a 1.04 WHIP. Is this kind of proving your point that this guy belongs in the bullpen?
Well, I think proves it. Look, he's had two appearances where he's really gotten roughed up pretty bad since he's been up here. The last, what's he been up, about a month?
Yeah.
It's just as plain as the nose on my face that this is what his future should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. And look, last night he was dominant, and I'm wondering. Yep. If he's the kind of guy where you can bring him in a high-leverage situation and be like, look, the game's in your hands. We're trusting you to close this thing out for us. If that adds to his competitive fire and he really locks in, because last night he locked in. Last night I thought he looked absolutely fantastic. He was pretty freaking psyched after that last strikeout. When Rutschman came out and hugged him and told him, he was that's a pretty good feeling there. And you hope that feeling is what carries over for him, where he voices that he wants this kind of role, Now, let me ask you a question. I know that this wasn't in the notes that I sent you last night, Stan, but so I go back to last Saturday, and the Orioles had a winnable game against the Houston Astros. They end up losing that game 11-10 in extra innings. But I look at the ninth inning, and the Orioles have a lead. And you've got Kyle Tucker up with 2 outs. Felix Bautista's gassed, and he has looked maybe the worst that he looked at any point this year in that ball game, and he's facing a lefty. You've got D.L. Hall warming in the pen, and D.L. Hall doesn't come into the game. You let Bautista at 30 pitches face Tucker, and he gives up the game-tying base hit.
Yeah.
I felt like if you've got if D.L. Hall he's here for a reason, you've got to put him into that situation. A power lefty against a left-handed bat. If you don't trust him, then why is he here? And B, you look at the next day, and look, hindsight's 20/20, but the next day, with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the ninth inning, he faces Kyle Tucker and he strikes him out. Which, do you think it should have been D.L. Hall in that situation on Saturday night to try and get the final out with Bautista laboring the way that he was?
Got to be honest with you, Paul. I was at a wedding that night, and really, I just do not get the context of it. I mean, it sounds the way you described it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a no-brainer. But maybe in Hyde's estimation, he hadn't quite earned that trust just yet. So. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's got to be what it was.
On that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. I understand. Now,
I think if that same circumstance happened tomorrow, there's a good chance D.L. Hall would be coming into the game.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that you're probably right, because now that they're out of contention, it probably all right. Let's see what you can do, kid. Kind of just like last night. Now, you can't mention D.L. Hall without mentioning Grayson Rodriguez. Really nice season. He had the lat injury that kept him out about 2.5 months. But he returned and wasn't exactly Grayson Rodriguez down the stretch, but he was still pretty damn good. Do you think that the Orioles reward him for a nice season by giving him a start here in Baltimore against Toronto in that final 3-game series?
My guess is that they don't. I don't think they view it as a reward. Mm-hmm. I think they just have just enough caution that because now it's vastly different to me. I didn't understand why they didn't bring him into the situation about 2 weeks ago as a relief pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm projecting that he should be a relief pitcher for the long haul, but I thought that there were 2 or 3 innings that he could have really helped when on a couple of these occasions when he was running out of people to put in that really could get the job done.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to know the last month he hasn't had that much confidence that Joey Crable was going to really get a job done.
Yeah, and now Crable has been demoted to AAA, even though their season's over. But I mean, he lost his job, so to speak. Now, somebody else, Stan, who might have trouble holding on to his job, and that's Jorge Mateo. And I look at that, and the defense is phenomenal. He's likely going to be a finalist for a Gold Glove at shortstop. And when his bat started to come on, starting after the All-Star break, he hit 250 in July, he hit 277 in August. You're thinking, okay, this is a guy who can play shortstop every day for a contending Baltimore Orioles team. He's hitting about 189, 190 in September. You look at the guys that they have coming in. You have Gunnar Henderson, Joey Ortiz, who has been phenomenal since July at AA and AAA and has a Major League ready glove. Jordan Westberg, Connor Norby, who is second in the franchise in the entire organization in home runs. Not to mention 4 or 5 quality shortstops on the free agent market. Should the Orioles just go into spring training saying Jorge Mateo is our shortstop, or do you think that there should be a healthy competition there?
That's a darn good question. I don't expect them to go shopping for a shortstop.
Okay.
There's plenty of answers. There's enough other issues that they have that, if you needed to get through a season, Mateo, we know what kind of job he can do. And we probably saw the last month sort of the bottom of what he was. In the previous month, we probably saw the top of what he was.
Right.
But, if that guy can hit 225 to 235 and be on base at just, 320 would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But, 300, if he's on base 300, that's a lot of chaos coming. To use the Orioles phrase.
I like it.
Yeah.
So
he's a unique talent. It really looked like I thought that the club played its best baseball when he was really cooking. There was about a 35-game stretch where I thought he hit. I thought I checked it, and he was like hitting 300 or something. For about a 35-game stretch. He hid a lot of the offensive deficiencies of that ball club during that time, and they won an awful lot of games during that stretch where he was hot. When he suddenly reverted back to what he was all throughout September, that's when the offensive woes of the club really peaked. That became obvious that this lineup isn't ready to really compete.
Well, yeah, and Stan, it seems like Jorge Mateo is getting a called strike on him, multiple called strikes every at bat that he doesn't agree with that are in the zone. It seems like he just completely lost any kind of clue of where the strike zone was over the last month or so.
Yeah.
Did you notice that too?
Yeah. I didn't quite notice it exactly the same way, but I would agree that he sort of got lost the last month of the season. I asked Hyde that after a game about 8 days ago. I said, what do you think happened? He said he started to chase out of the zone. He got very comfortable. He got very comfortable in that from mid-July till about September 1st. He got very comfortable just doing the wrong things again.
Stan, I just want to point out you were spot on. From July 10th to August 23rd in it's a 35-game stretch for Jorge Mateo. He slashed 323, 359, 605 with a 964 OPS. You were spot on. 35 games.
That 359 was absolutely amazing. And then about 10 days ago, I peeked up at the stats. I mean, I knew he wasn't playing at the same level, but I peeked up and I said, his on-base percentage is under 300.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me in a different way of one of Santander's really good years about 3 years ago, where the same thing, he played. He didn't start out great. Then in May, June, and July, he was really good. And then all of a sudden I turned around like September 10th and I said, this guy's on-base percentage is like right at 300.
That was 2019 when he had the labrum issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jorge Mateo in his last since August 23rd, so August 24th through.
I'm going to guess like 175, 185.
His slash line stand is 170, 200, 270 with a 470 OPS in 31 games since August 24th. You were spot on. You were spot on.
Stan, do you think there's a team, though, that looks at Jorge Mateo being fourth on the Orioles in WAR at the moment, 3.5, just behind Ramon Arias at 3.6, and says, okay, there's the defense, there's the speed. Maybe they try to make a trade, and the Orioles try to move Jorge Mateo. Is that something you could see? Do other teams value him despite the bat?
I think he did enough at a high level this year that certain teams would value him. Again, I have a hard time when I look at the Orioles thinking they get what they need in a 1-for-1 trade.
Right.
But when you start talking about a team, I'm at a loss for a second. Maybe like not Kansas City, because Witt will be the shortstop there.
Minnesota's going to need a shortstop. Yep. Minnesota's going to need a shortstop.
Maybe the Minnesota Twins, and you do Hayes, Mateo, and a prospect, and you get something really valuable in return.
Sure. Yeah.
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
I think this last month did not help that.
No.
And in fact, if the last month hadn't happened, we'd be sitting here saying, "Hey, is it time to sign him to a 3 or 4 year contract?"
Yeah.
I agree with you. And saying
my guess is at the worst, they may feel that he could be a super utility guy.
And that's what that's what I was about to say to you. You'd have to get Mateo to agree to it, and I don't know that he would. I think he views himself as an everyday player, but Jorge Mateo as a super utility guy, I think, is a huge piece on a contending Orioles team. I mean, you're talking about a guy who leads the American League in stolen bases and plays Gold Glove defense. And that's somebody who you can pinch run. You can put him in to play defense. He can still play 120 games and have a big impact on your ball club. He's just got to be willing to do it.
Yeah.
So I think he's a perfect utility guy.
I think he's got a lot of trust in these people that are doing the work here, because they did work with him and it paid off. And whatever the reason, it's the point I make, continually about Ryan Mountcastle. My gut feeling is Ryan Mountcastle will never be the star that he could be. That's my gut feeling. I think he will constantly revert back to being the guy that just chases balls out of the strike zone.
I noticed that
it's incredibly hard if you're over the age of like 25 and you haven't learned that discipline. Now, I mean, Santander this year, what's Santander's on base percentage now?
I'm gonna say it's probably like 334 something.
I'm on it.
Okay. I'm gonna guess it lapsed back down to like 325.
320.
Like 320.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought. That's huge for him, but it's not huge. And what is Mountcastle's? Like,
it's got to be like 296,
297.
So Ryan is at 302 at the moment. So he's just above the 300 mark, which is, I guess, for him, not awful. Could be a lot worse, but certainly the swing decisions. Him and Jorge Mateo both.
It's very Mark Trumbo-esque. It's great if your announcers want to say another jumbo by Trumbo. But the bottom line is he really wasn't helping the team over the long haul, and the contract they gave him was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. I'll tell you, when it comes to Ryan Mountcastle, he hit into a ton of bad luck this year. He has one of the highest barrel rates in all of baseball this year. If some of those balls fall next year, look, is he ever going to be the guy that we thought he might be when we saw him hitting 300 and winning AAA MVPs at 21 years old? Probably not. But I think that's a guy who could bat sixth in your order and be a really productive player if you get that middle of the order bat that kind of elongates your lineup. And that brings me to our next talking point here, Stan, and that's what the Orioles are going to go after this offseason. And you saw the notes. I put a list of players for each position because I think that we can both agree that the needs for the Orioles in no particular order are starting pitching, middle of the order bat, and some relief help. Do you see them? I think we can all agree that they're probably going to be out on Aaron Judge, even though I think he's a perfect fit here. But there's Jose Abreu, Josh Bell, J.D. Martinez. Do you see any of those three guys being fits here for the Orioles next year to kind of elongate the lineup and give you better at-bats and a guy who imposes fear in the opposing pitcher?
Well, of the three, what's Abreu doing this year? I mean, he's such a steady performer. But yeah. I have no interest in J.D. Martinez.
Yeah, neither do I.
I really don't.
So Abreu's been worth 4 WAR. He's batting .304 with 15 home runs, an on-base percentage of .376, an OPS of .821, and an OPS plus of .132. That's an impact bat. Yeah. For me, that's an impact bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do not see the White Sox allowing him to leave. I mean, to me, he's a lifetime White Sox. So I don't think. And Josh Bell, I'd have to really have watched him much more. You know, the numbers he puts up are pretty impressive, but I don't know, like, sort of what his WAR is. I don't know what his on-base percentage is.
So he's had
a couple really good years, you know.
He actually is having a pretty good year. His WAR is 2.9, and his on-base percentage is .358, which for a first baseman, the on-base percentage is, I think, around where you want it to be, and 2.9 for a first baseman is actually pretty good.
He was way better in D.C. In D.C., he was slashing .301, .384 with an .877 OPS and 14 home runs. Since he got to San Diego,
he's a switch hitter, right?
Yeah, he is. He's a switch hitter. He's hitting .187 since he got out to San Diego with just.
Well, I'm not really
runs.
worried what he's done. I'm not worried what he's done in San Diego. He's got a track record. He'd be interesting, and he's in an age where, I think he might be an interesting fit.
Yeah, and he's only 30 years old. You know, like you said, he's at an age where he could be a solid fit there. I look at second base. Stan,
I mean, a 2-year. What are we talking, Zach? 2 years, $14 million a year for that?
At his age, I don't think he'd accept that.
I'm thinking more around like this. I think that could be accurate.
I think he would want 5 years.
You think he wants more than that?
At 30 years old, with the seasons
I don't think anybody's got.
I think the money's right though.
Giving him 5 years.
I think the AAV at around 14 is probably about right. I don't think he's going to get more or less. Right. I think it's right about that. He could get 3 years, 4 years, maybe not 5.
He can do. He's a guy you could project more damage than Mancini.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and you can put a knockout in.
Mancini, they probably have Mancini down as a $8 million guy, and Trey's going to want more than that, you know. And in reality, he's probably in the 8, 9, 10 range, you know.
Yeah, I mean, given the fact that Jose Abreu and Josh Bell are arguably the two best first basemen on the market right now, and given the fact that Jose Abreu won an MVP, of course it was in an abbreviated year, but I think Abreu, even at his age, 6 years older than Josh Bell is, might command a little bit more money. But we have a commenter saying that he's a perfect fit, and I totally agree. I think Abreu is the absolute perfect fit for the Orioles. It's just he's not going to cost a super expensive amount. He's going to be expensive, but it's not going to be a bank breaker where you're paying a guy like Bryce Harper $300 million or something.
Like a 2-year, $35 million.
I think it'd be
probably at
2 or 3 year deal.
At 36 years old, the bat's going to play, and you're going to have to DH him mostly. It'll be interesting to see what the White Sox do with him because he's not going to play first base. They have Andrew Vaughn for that.
I don't see them letting him go.
Oh.
He's sort of a piece. He's a piece of the furniture there.
He just hit 8 years service time too, just yesterday. So
yeah.
Now, Stan, what about Gene Segura? You've already said you don't think the Orioles are going to be in on any of the big name shortstops. Gene Segura is a guy. He's 33 years old. He plays second base. He can steal you a bag. He has a 200 hit season under his belt. Gets on base. Is that a guy you see the Orioles could maybe be signing to put at the top of their order to get guys on base for guys like Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman and Brian
I haven't seen enough of him. Once he left the American League. I used to like Segura about 3-4 years ago, 5 years ago. I really don't know the player that well right now. He's not that middle infield does not look to me to be a place that they're going to spend any money.
Okay.
Fair enough.
They've got Oriole, they've got Henderson, they got Mateo that they still control. They got Jordan Westberg. I just don't see that as an area that they're going, boy, let's see how we can get better. And they go, let's find a better second base shortstop person. I just don't see it. I think the needs of adding that really good bat, that they can count on to be like what Ken Singleton was 35 years ago. The need for that and the starting pitching and the bullpen are far greater.
So Stan, this is our last in-season show. We have, obviously the season is ending for the Orioles on Wednesday, and one of the biggest preseason topics for us was the wall being moved back and how right-handed hitters would fare and how pitchers have fared. Do you think this season, and you look at what happened to Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes having years that were significantly worse than their previous year, do you think that right-handed hitters and the way the Orioles look at them is going to be changed because of what happened in 2022?
That's a great question, Zach. I think it's quite clear that Elias came in with a plan. I don't think he just unhatched that last October and said, "Hey, let's do." I think he's probably had discussions with John and Sig about what to do, and it's clear that they've built. It's clear that they've built a club that has a lot of left-handed options coming up. With Heston Kjerstad and Rutschman, Cowser, and Jackson Holiday. So he's kind
Gunnar.
of playing this. And Gunnar left him out. So I think he's kind of been moving in that direction. I think the most important thing to me would be to tie it into your pitching staff. I'd really like to have 2 left-handed starters next year. And I'm not even talking about means plus one. I'd think that the number one starter that they need is probably a left-handed starter, of some renown,
Yeah, no, I can kind of agree with you there. And Rich Hill, would you have any interest in Rich Hill as being a veteran presence you could have for low money on this staff next year?
I wouldn't have a problem having Rich Hill on my staff. I'd have a problem watching him through playing fantasy baseball. I've had him. He's just always if you could get 100 innings out of him or 90 innings, they're going to be fairly high quality innings. So I have no problem buying him on a 1-year, $5 million deal to round out your. He's an interesting name, but I'm thinking of Jesus Luzardo, a Ranger Suarez. Those are the guys that I'm looking at. Finding guys that are good left-handed pitchers. And in the case of Suarez, I was really surprised how few home runs he gives up already. And you put him in that ballpark, and you think of what the Phillies are right now. Yeah, they need pitching, but they also need to round out their batting. Their starting 9 a little bit.
Well,
so I think there's a deal to be had for a pitcher like that. I've also mentioned I think Giolito would be an interesting guy that they could get, and they wouldn't at his age. And what he did this year and what he's done really the last 2 years, I don't think he's going to command huge dollars. Might be 4 years at 14 or 15 million, but you're not talking 28 million or 30 million, like a Verlander, or 35 million. So that would be very interesting to me. I don't think Kershaw is on the market.
Yeah, I think he's a lifelong
Kershaw
Dodger.
and the Dodgers he's a lifelong Dodger.
Now, Stan, how about Carlos Rodon is obviously going to be the big ticket guy. He's a lefty, but Drew Smiley is a solid pitcher. He's a lefty, and Wade Miley.
I like Smiley. I like Smiley a lot. I think Smiley's a very interesting guy. I'd be more inclined to put the eggs in the Smiley basket than the Rich Hill basket being meaningful. I think Chris Holt and his analytic people could probably do a really nice job with resurrecting Drew Smiley to be what he could be. Again, he's had a history of a lot of injuries too.
Mm-hmm.
So
how?
But this is what makes for an interesting off season.
And the last guy that I'll mention, how about Wade Miley? He's been really good since leaving the Orioles. He's a lefty.
I mentioned him to Luke Jackson, our managing editor, and he says he wouldn't come within 10 feet of Camden Yards. I think you could do a sales job on Miley to come pitch at this park.
I think you could too.
This is a vastly different park, and again, he was a failure for Dan Duquette as a trade, but he wasn't the only guy. Jerry DiPoto traded for him. I think he signed him once, traded for him once, and had his heart broken by the guy. And Ben Cherington traded for him. It wasn't like Dan Duquette was the only guy. Nobody else wanted him. He's always gotten a job. And in fact, the Astros had him a couple of years ago, right?
In 2019.
Yeah, 14-6 with a 3.98 and 167 innings pitched. Yeah. Now, Stan, there's a number of left-handed outfielders that are going to be available in free agency this year. Andrew Benintendi, Michael Brantley, and Jock Peterson. Do you see the Orioles taking a flyer on any of those guys? Jock Peterson, to me, I don't necessarily want him. I don't think he gets on base enough. I think he strikes out too much. But that's a guy who he screams Baltimore Orioles, does he not?
I've never thought about him screaming Baltimore Orioles. But it would be nice. Dean Kramer would have somebody to go to synagogue with on Saturdays. He's also Jewish. He's an interesting player. Again, I think with what this organization has in terms of what they have now and what's in these, short-term offing with Stowers and Cowser, I don't really think the outfield is really where they're going to be going.
Yeah, probably.
In fact, I think the odds of Hayes, Mullins, and Santander all being here next year, I wouldn't think that's a high probability.
I would also say it's pretty low.
You're probably right, but I think that they do want to add a bat, and I'm just trying to figure out where they're going to add that bat.
Well, that bat by mid-season next year might be Colton Cowser.
That's an excellent point. That is an excellent point. And finally, Stan, do you think that the Orioles, the bullpen ran out of gas? A lot of guys had career highs in innings and innings pitched coming out of that pen. I think that Cianel Perez, Dylan Tate, Brian Baker, and Felix Bautista are all safe for next year. Do you anticipate the team targeting relievers this offseason, or do you think that they're going to build that bullpen from within with guys like Mike Ballman, Austin Voth, or others who we aren't even thinking about right now?
Yeah, my gut tells me that they're going to make a move or two in the bullpen.
Yeah,
I'll tell you the guy. I've slightly soured on is Dylan Tate.
Yeah,
I love his stuff, but boy, doesn't it seem like he comes in with a 2 or 3 run lead and he either gives it up via home run, or he gives up like he did the other night, comes into a tie game and gives up a home run in the ninth inning. It seems like
he gives up a big home run pretty frequently.
Very frequently. I think he has value. So again, you talk to a team, like Minnesota, who has all kinds of bullpen woes, even though, and you suddenly start talking to them about Mateo and Tate and Hayes or something, a 3-for-1. I don't do the work of thinking exactly what we get in return. I just think that Tate is a guy that has value that I think that the club can do better than. And I think they need to do better than. To me, he's good, on the verge of being great, and I don't know that he's ever going to be great. I just think he recedes from greatness.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you. People talk about how electric his stuff is, but it seems like he's always giving up the big hit at the inopportune time.
He's only given up 6 home runs over 65 games, but I do feel like it's been, especially lately towards the end of the season, where he's come in a lot of big situations and certainly hasn't performed his best.
And they may know better that, hey, if we add another guy and he's in less innings, if he's in 57 innings, and innings pitched is one thing. How many times these guys get up to warm up, is another thing.
Yeah.
And while there have been great strides made on the starting pitching, it had its moments this year when Kramer and Voth and Watkins and Lyles were all really going well. There was still an awful lot of games where by the fourth inning they needed a new pitcher in the game or something like that. So maybe they're closer to it and can say, when we see that, Stan, what you're talking about, but we feel that we get better at the starting pitching end of things, have a true ace and a true number two, because Jordan Lyles, serviceable. Luke Jackson last night texted me late last night, the Braves re-signed Charlie Morton next year, a 1-year, $20 million contract. That's what good teams are paying for guys that they're really confident in, that they're not willing to invest 3 or 4 years in, but 1 year, $20 million. Jordan Lyles is $11 million. And it opens your eyes as to whether do you want Jordan Lyles at 11, or is there somebody better that's 2 years at 16 a year? Yeah. I think, me personally, I opt to try and get better than Jordan Lyles.
Yeah, we're gonna see it all here in the next couple of months. It should be an interesting and exciting off-season.
It's going to be an interesting off-season. Yep. Lots to talk about.
What do you have coming up this week?
I got a Zoom tomorrow. Monday with Ross, and I'm going to try to do it whatever the weather looks like. I was going to try and accomplish it at like 4 in the afternoon so I could get down there, because it sounds like the weather is going to be awful this week.
Yeah,
so I've got that, and then my Thursday Zoom will be at its regular time. So we'll get something done.
All right, sounds good.
I'm plugging this 5-star event out in Cecil County at Fair Hills, which is coming up the 13th through the 16th. It's a world-renowned event. There's only 7 of them in the world. 2 in the U.S., Kentucky and Maryland have it, and it's gonna grow over the years to be a pretty special event. So I urge people to try and go out there. Thursday and Friday is what's known as the dressage, which is sort of like figure skating for horses. Then Saturday they have that tremendous cross-country event. And then Sunday they've got the show jumping thing. So it's really an interesting event.
Absolutely. All right, Sam, we are up against it. We got to run, but we will talk to you next weekend. All right.
All right. Talk soon. Bye.
See you. Now, with Stan the Fan Turtles, who has 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of baseball. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. Stan had a busy week as he and Ross caught up with former Oriole Bill Swaggerty, while he and Gary chatted with world-class eventing rider Joe Meyer about the upcoming Maryland 5-star. You can find these shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. And Stan and Ross will be back with a Zoom probably around 4 o'clock, as Stan alluded to, on Monday with another great show. Guests to be determined. We got to catch our first break. Today's show has been brought to you by the Maryland 5-Star. You can come see Olympic athletes in action as the nation's best horses and riders compete in one of the world's premier equestrian events at the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory. That's on October 13th through the 16th in Cecil County. When we come back from Inside Access on 105.7 The Fan, Ken Weinman joins the show next on the Batter Round.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest brewer's platter, the brewer's sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
What's up, everyone? This is Tyus Bowser, and I'm excited to tell you that I'm back for Season 2 of the Tyus Bowser Show in partnership with PressBox and Great Ace Memorabilia. Join us on Tuesday nights throughout the season, as I'll be heading all over town with my special guests. And of course, our co-hosts, Glenn and Rita. Or is it Rita and Glenn? What is it? I look forward to meeting you guys and talking a little bit about football and a lot about life. And if you happen to miss the show, you can now catch a replay Friday nights on 105.7 The Fan. Get all of your details for the Tyus Bowser Show right now at PressBox foxonline.com/Bowser.
The next Tyus Bowser show is Tuesday, October 4th at 7 p.m. at Guilford Hall Brewery, 1611 Guilford Avenue in Station North. It's brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
All right, welcome back to the Bat Around. We are into hour number 2 of the program. Hour number 1 of the Bat Around is brought to you by the Toyota Tacoma, which comes in a range of models and trim lines, and you can choose a perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Joining us now on the Bat Around, it's been a while since we've had him on, and we're going to try and better that here in the future. From Inside Access on 105.7 The Fan, he is Ken Weinman, and he's live with us now on the Bat Around. Ken, good morning. It's Paul. It's Zach. How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you guys?
We're doing really well. Kind of a bittersweet morning for us, right? Because the Orioles pick up their 81st victory last night to ensure their first non-losing season since 2016. But about an hour and a half after that game ended, the Seattle Mariners walked off the Oakland Athletics, and that combined with the Rays' victory over the Astros earlier in the evening eliminated the Orioles from postseason contention. What are your feelings there? The Orioles get that 81st victory, but they're eliminated from postseason contention.
Yeah, I actually okay with it. This team ran out of gas down the stretch. September into October has not been great now. It's October today, but September has not been great. And I think some of the guys, the overuse of the bullpen, and actually some of these young guys dealing with games that matter, pressure games for the first time. I think we started to see things fray a little bit. They really didn't hit for a few weeks, which hurt them. The fact of the matter is they weren't expected to be good this year. I think they're ahead of schedule. and I'm still really excited about the future. So yeah, they didn't make the playoffs this year, but it never was about just trying to win a wild card this year. It was about being not a competitive team, a contending team for the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, and I think they're on track for that.
So, and your overall sentiment then for this season is, I mean, they're going to be more than 30 games better than they were last year. Probably about 30 games better than they were last year. The overwhelming sentiment has to be, this was a remarkable season for a team that lost 110 games last year.
Well, yeah, I just saw a stat this morning. For our team that lost 110 games the year before, the only other teams that have been close to this successful were teams that played in the 1890s.
Right.
So, yeah, this has been a ridiculously successful year, and we finally got to see Adley. We got to see Gunnar. You see guys that like Jordan Lyles, I think, was better than we thought he was going to be. DL Hall is here. I hope they give Grayson a start on Monday or Tuesday. There's a lot to be excited about if you're an Oriole fan.
You mentioned DL Hall. He came on last night, picked up his first career save in dominant fashion. He struck out 2 in a 1-2-3-9 through 9 of 13 pitches for strikes. Do you believe that DL Hall should still be viewed as a starter moving forward, or was last night more of a glimpse of where he ultimately ends up, in your opinion?
I think they still look at him as a starter. I don't think that's going to be where he ends up. I think he's going to be a high leverage reliever. That's just my opinion. If he is a starter, that's great. I just think he's probably just his style of pitching. I just think he's better suited for high leverage bursts of relief, which, you know, if he can be an Andrew Miller type of guy, that's pretty incredible too. Andrew Miller was originally a starter, and he was a big part of the Miguel Cabrera trade when he was a starter, and then that flamed out and he became one of the top relievers in baseball for a number of years. So I think DL Hall still will be a big contributor, but no, I do not see him as a starter.
Another guy you also mentioned there when highlighting this season was Gunnar Henderson. And man, Ken, he burst on the scene since coming up at the end of August. What is his ceiling? I mean, this guy looks like he's got to be the front runner for Rookie of the Year next year.
Yeah, his ceiling. Well, you know what's funny? There were people that were mad that the Orioles, I almost said Ravens, the Orioles took Adley over Bobby Witt, and I thought Adley was a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. But crazy enough, they might have gotten Adley and Bobby Witt in the same draft, because Gunnar Henderson, if he's a shortstop, he's at third base, we'll see. But man, oh man, my dad and I, it was cool enough. We were in Cleveland for his debut, saw him hit the home run. I think this kid, the sky's the limit. And I said on our show a couple weeks ago, Gunnar and Adley are giving me Eddie and Cal vibes. And Eddie and Cal, you know, Eddie came up in the late 70s. Cal didn't come up, 81, 82 was his rookie year. Mm-hmm. And by 89, they were apart. But these guys came up the same year. And I foresee the next 7 to 10 years, these two just being the heart of this Orioles lineup.
Yeah, I think you're looking at guys who are going to hit 3-4 for, like you said, 7 to 10 years, and maybe even battling with each other in MVP considerations. These are two incredibly talented players. A lot of talented guys on the team, a lot of talented guys coming through the system. Now, Ken, a lot of times you see a rebuilding team hire a guy to be the manager to kind of get you through the rebuild, and then when it's time to contend, you ultimately end up going with somebody who has more experience and knows how to win once they get to the playoffs. And that brings me to Brandon Hyde. People have been very critical of Hyde, myself included, for some of his lineups and how he kind of holds the hands of the pitchers in his rotation. How much input do you think the front office actually has on the daily lineups and the pitchers he uses? Because the excuses I hear are that he's kind of just a puppet and they tell him who to put out there every single day.
Well, as far as the in-game pitching decisions, I don't know, but I fight with my co-host about this. I think that he has input on he gets input on the lineup. Mm-hmm. Like I can remember a couple of years ago, they were talking about it during the World Series that Dave Roberts gets lineup input. Like he doesn't put together the lineup by himself. And I think all these analytical teams, like they go to, like, we joke, it's called like the supercomputer helps spit out the lineup. And I do get frustrated with some of these lineups, and that lineup they put out the other day that had nobody in it, and they lost to the Red Sox with 3-1 was disgusting when you still had a half a shot at the playoffs. I'd rather he staggered the days off and then give everybody the day off on the same day. I'm not sure about long story short, I'm not sure about Brandon Hyde. The one thing like different than Houston and others, like Brandon Hyde and Mike Elias, from everything I've heard, are on the same page. So I don't know if he's going to be the stand-in. I think next year we're going to find out for sure, because this team is going to have expectations from the jump that they were not expected to be any good this year. And for the first time in July and August and September, he managed games that meant something. Does he always do the right thing? I don't think so. I think he had a bit of a Joey Crable fetish when that thing looked like it had sailed a while before.
Right.
But the problem had become because once you traded Jorge Lopez, the bullpen became thin. And I don't have a problem with trading Jorge Lopez. I thought it was smart. I thought it was smart to trade both him and Mancini. Right. But once you trade him, you had one less arm in the bullpen. And now but you can't throw Dylan Tate and Cino Perez and Felix Bautista every single day. Somebody else has to get outs for you at some point. And unfortunately, he would pick the guys that couldn't get it done. And they lost some games that probably they could have or should have won. And if they win those games, maybe they're still alive in this thing. But I'm still unsure about Brandon Hyde, and I think we're going to find out next season.
Do you have an issue with the way he's handled his starting rotation, where he's removing guys at 5 1/3 innings at 70 pitches because they let somebody get on base, or they've gone 6 innings of 2-hit ball, and because they're at 86 pitches, he doesn't let them come back out for the 7th. I felt like he just babied that rotation down the stretch when he should have been asking for a little bit extra out of them.
Well, to me, that's analytics too. Now, I can't remember the specific situations, but I do remember Kevin Cash taking Blake Snell out of a World Series game because they were about to come. The lineup was about to go through the third time, and of course, that's an analytics no-no. So I just think that sometimes these teams, and granted, how much we're nitpicking here, because hell, what Mike Elias has done in a quick amount of time, and especially when you think the COVID year set him back a year, is incredible. But I think these analytical franchises, and there are a lot of them now, they rely so much on the numbers, and they all think that that it's better to bring in a fresh pitcher than let a guy face the lineup for a third time. And sometimes, I'd like to see him let the guy fight and get out of the jam, especially like in a game in the middle of July. I want to see if the kid can get out of the jam instead of going to the bullpen. But I think the babying, that's a front office, in my opinion, that's a front office edict.
Yeah. No, I think it's an analytics and a matchup thing, too. And sometimes I just think that they over-match up. For example, Kyle Stowers just can't get into the lineup against a lefty, but he homers off a lefty the other day. Today they're facing Nestor Cortez, and he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, when they picked up Jesus Aguilar, I'm like, okay, an extra bat, maybe he can find himself into a few home runs in this pennant race. Maybe almost like when the Orioles picked up Jim Thome in 2014,
2012,
but 2012, sorry,
That's
but
right.
But to play him over Kyle Stowers, or to pull Stowers for Aguilar when they bring in a lefty and then Aguilar flies out on the first pitch, I'm like, let the kid get some at bats against lefties. So like, what are we doing here? I do feel like there's a lot of the overemphasis on the numbers sometimes instead of just looking at two human beings.
And that was in the 5th inning, Ken, when they pulled Kyle Stowers. The 5th inning. It was the one lefty they were going to face, and they pull him in the 5th inning. It was. I'm with you on that one. Jorge Mateo. He's played Gold Glove caliber defense at shortstop. He's among the league leaders in stolen bases. The bat's not playing. He hit .250 in July and .277 in August, and you thought maybe this former top prospect has figured it out at the plate. He's hitting about .190 in September, and his on-base percentage has never been high. You have guys like Gunnar Henderson, who's already on the roster, Jordan Westburg, Joey Ortiz, Connor Norby, who are likely to be here next year if they're not traded. How safe is Jorge Mateo's job at shortstop? Do you think he should just be handed the job for next year, or should it be a healthy competition?
My understanding is the front office loves him. That said, I've seen way too many bad at-bats from him down the stretch. It's not just about getting outs. It's the quality of the at-bats when he gets out. He's a great shortstop, but if they put Gunnar at short, or I think they're going to spend money on some hitting. Like if they go out and get a free agent shortstop, I think they're going to trade for a pitcher and buy a bat or two. Mike Elias, if you listen to him when he talks, he's incredibly candid, almost too candid. He said they got tons of payroll flexibility and it's liftoff time. I expect to see them, like hot stove is going to be interesting for the Orioles for the first time in a very long time. And I do not think Jorge Mateo is safe. There are some that say, well, let him bat ninth and the defense plays, and that's fine. But if it's Gunnar Henderson, if it's Joey Ortiz, if it's free agent player X, who all can play an above-average shortstop and the bat plays better, I don't know. Now, can Jorge Mateo be a super utility guy? Maybe. But if I'm running the Orioles, I've lost a lot of confidence in Jorge Mateo down the stretch.
I did too. It's Ken, it seems like he has no idea where the strike zone is. He has no idea what a strike is at this point in the season, which is troubling to me. And then, and let's talk about this. Excuse me. Let's talk about this upcoming offseason. I agree. I think that they're going to go out and spend some money, whether it's through trade, whether it's through free agency. At the top of my wish list is Aaron Judge. I know that's a pipe dream. I think that's the guy. That's the one guy that you can put into the middle of your lineup that imposes fear on everybody, and that wall is not going to be an issue for him. But he's going to cost $50 million a year, and I'm well aware of that. Your expectations for this offseason, you just laid them out for me. What's the kind of player you think that they're going to bring in here?
Well, so a couple of guys. I'll tell you a couple of guys that Jason, my co-host, mentions, like a Gene Segura, Mitch Haniger, guys that he mentions. I got a sneaky one for you, and I know he's a guy that they flirted with. They never made an offer, but they flirted with him last year. I think Carlos Correa is on the table for these guys. I think that Elias drafted him. I think he has a good relationship with him. I think if you give him a 4-year deal with, a deal that has an opt-out after 3 to 4 years, I think that's somebody that could be on the table for them. I don't know if they're going to be in the mix for Aaron Judge. I don't know if they want to spend that kind of money. Though I think they're also in the next year, I think they're going to try to get Adley and Gunnar signed to massive extensions as well, so that there's going to be money spent. So, but I do think they're going to spend real money this offseason. I don't think that they believe in giving $150 to $200 million to a pitcher. I think they're going to trade for a pitcher. Maybe it's a Corbin Burns, maybe it's a Pablo Lopez, but I think they've got so much in the farm that they're going to trade some of the surplus for an arm.
Yeah, no, I think that we've kind of seen the writing on the wall that the pitcher's probably coming via a trade. They have so much capital to trade here as far as players are concerned within this organization. I agree with you. The pitching's coming over in a trade. Now, you mentioned Carlos Correa, and he just went to a pitcher's ballpark, and the home runs, he had, 22, 23 home runs this year. He's a good player. Do you think that wall in left field scares him off from signing with Baltimore?
Does it scare him? I don't think so. I think that he probably doesn't love it, but I think here's what I know. I know that Carlos Correa has hit massive, big-time home runs in the postseason. I think that's a guy that when you look at taking the next step, you want a guy that has World Series experience, that has won a World Series, has been to multiple postseason games, that has had key hits to win postseason games. That's the kind of guy that I think is incredibly intriguing to me. And don't get me wrong, Aaron Judge is great, but Aaron Judge hasn't played in as many postseason games as Carlos Correa. And I don't think what's Carlos Correa, 27, 28 years old?
I think 29,
that's, to me, when I'm looking at a team, and he's got an opt-out after this year, and I don't think he's staying in Minnesota. So I think that's the sneaky guy to me, because my understanding is they did talk. They never made an offer. There were some rumors of some offers being made, but the understanding I have is they never made an offer, but they did talk to him. I think Mike Elias has a Carlos Correa fetish, and it wouldn't shock me if that guy ended up in Oriole.
Oh, trust me, I'm not going to complain if Carlos Correa is wearing the orange and black on opening day next year. That's for sure. And finally, Ken, realistic expectations for 2023. Is this a team that can? Are you just looking for them to get to the playoffs next year, or do you expect them to get to the playoffs and make some noise next year?
Well, so I'm not going to cop out, but I can't answer that until I see what they do.
Sure.
But my expectation is they're a playoff team next year. It wasn't a coincidence that they were above 500 from the point they brought Adley Rutschman up. Adley Rutschman, it was everything they could have wanted and more, and knock on wood, that kid stays healthy. He's going to be the best catcher in baseball for the next 7 to 10 years, and he's an alpha, and he's a leader, and I think he's a difference maker. I think Gunnar is a difference maker, but now they got to sprinkle some pieces in. I think they need a bat or two in that lineup, some guys that know how to take professional at-bats, guys that, let's face it, as much as we love everybody that's in this lineup, you look at the lineup, and they didn't hit. And I think they got some questions this offseason. Is Austin Hayes part of the future? Ryan Mountcastle struggled at times this year, though I loved him at first base. His glove plays.
Yeah.
And I think he's a real player, but they've got guys coming. Like Kobe Mayo is probably going to be a first baseman, not a third baseman. They got a lot of guys coming in the outfield. Like Colton Cowser is going to be here. You got Connor Norby, Jordan Westbrook. Some of these guys are getting traded this offseason. That's the reality. But and here's the other crazy part. They really haven't started to see anything from their Dominican Academy yet, and that's something that just keeps on churning, and something that this organization ignored forever, which drove me crazy. Yeah. So the fact that they have the number one farm system in baseball and they've got nothing from Latin America is frankly incredible. So this thing's going to keep on going. It's once some of these guys graduate, they might not be the best farm system in baseball anymore. Plus, they're going to trade some guys, but they're still going to have a really strong farm. And I think they're going to use it to their advantage. And some of these guys are going to end up here. And some guys that are on this team right now that fans like might not be here a year from now.
No, we talk about this all the time on this show, Ken, is that we really believe that people need to get on board with the fact that there's going to be a lot of players that you like that aren't going to be Baltimore Orioles next year, and people need to prepare themselves for that. What do you got coming up on Inside Access next week?
Well, we'll be talking a lot about the O's and a lot about the Ravens. Obviously, Ravens-Bills Sunday. That will be the main topic, I'm sure, on Monday as we see the Ravens and Bills play. I know it's a baseball show, but it's going to be football heavy on Monday with that Ravens-Bills game tomorrow.
Who you got in that game?
I took the Ravens 41-36.
Yeah. I'm thinking something similar. I think that I don't think they want to lose 5 straight at home, and B, no. I think that all they've heard all offseason and to start this year is that the Bills are the team to beat and Josh Allen's the MVP favorite, and I think that they have something for him on Sunday.
And the other thing is that 3 of those 4 games were quarterbacked by Tyler Huntley. If healthy Lamar Jackson is quarterbacking those 3 games, they likely win those 3 games. But here we are with 4 straight losses.
Absolutely. Ken, thank you so much for taking some time for us. We will try and make it not so long in between visits next time. Have a great weekend.
Hey, no worries. Anytime.
See you. That was Ken Weinman joining us here on the Bat Around. Always great talking with Ken. Ken's been doing shows with me since the payoff pitch in 2018.
Yeah.
So, 2019, excuse me, 2019. So always glad to have Ken on the show. And he's as passionate an Orioles fan as you're going to get. He had this epic rant about the Orioles. I want to say it was in 2016 or 2017. It may have been 2017. He went absolutely off to start his afternoon show, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard on Baltimore sports radio.
I remember that vaguely, yeah.
He went off, and it was like a solid 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it was, I loved every bit of it. It showed the passion. It was like the passion that I feel, and it was like, yes, finally somebody's saying it. So it was always glad to have Ken Weinman on the show. Ken's segment was brought to you by the Tyus Bowser Show. The next Tyus Bowser Show is this Tuesday, October 4th at Guilford Hall Brewery in Station North. Tyus and a special guest will join Rita and Glenn. This is your opportunity to meet Baltimore football stars while getting the inside scoop on the purple and black. So we'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery for the Tyus Bowser Show on October 4th. The Tyus Bowser Show is a partnership of Pressbox and Great Eights Memorabilia and brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Grill. And if you happen to miss the Tyus Bowser Show, you can check it out Friday nights throughout the season on 105.7 The Fan. It is now time for Sounding Off with Zach Goodman. Today's Sounding Off segment is brought to you by the Maryland 5-Star. And again, you can see Olympic athletes in action as the nation's best horses and riders compete in one of the world's premier equestrian events at the Mars Maryland 5-Star Fair here presented by Brown Advisory. That's October 13th through the 16th in Cecil County. Zach, what do you got for us today?
Yeah, I almost want to pose this, again, as more of a discussion with you about your feelings on this, because it is a controversial topic, and it's one I've covered before on Sounding Off, and it's one that I feel needs to be updated. People need to be updated with the latest information on this. So what I'm talking about right now is the minor league baseball pitch clock. It was implemented a few years ago, and it's something that's going to be implemented to Major League Baseball in 2023 as a part of, honestly, sweeping changes, and I talked about all of those changes. If you go back, I think 2 or 3 shows ago, I did a whole segment about that. Mm-hmm. I've been always a supporter of the pitch clock. That's something that I've always found is going to bring, in the long run, I don't think you'll see, maybe you won't see returns on this immediately, but I think it's going to increase viewership, especially among younger generations. Because if you look at the attention span of people my age, and especially people younger than me, they're pretty short. And that's why a lot of, I think, people my age, gravitate towards more of the action sports, basketball, football, sports that, not that football's basically like 2 hours of commercials and 1 hour of actual football, to be fair. But I think baseball can be really slow for a lot of people. And I think having a pitch clock and shortening the game by a significant amount is really going to help baseball in the long run. And if you look at what the early returns are on this in minor league baseball, they actually cut off 25 minutes on average this year compared to last year. It went down from 3 hours and 1 minute to 2 hours and around 38 minutes. So that's a big change. That's a really significant big change. And
that's a whole episode of The Office.
Right. I mean, that's a while. And I think 2 hours and 38 minutes, which again, the average length of a minor league baseball game this year, is a lot more watchable for a lot of people than 3 hours plus. Once you get to 3 hours plus, I think people really start to lose interest. So I think that if this starts to happen in Major League Baseball, where you're getting games at 2 hours 30 minutes, 2 hours 40 minutes, you're going to see a lot of people start to gravitate toward baseball and watch it a little more and actually pay attention for the entire time. I mean, I know a lot of people who watch the first 4 innings of a baseball game. Maybe they'll turn it back on in the 9th inning if their team is winning, and maybe their attention span just doesn't last. 2 hours and 38 minutes is a significant improvement to me. And a regulation length MLB game, according to Baseball Reference, they've not checked in as short as 2 hours and 40 minutes since the 1985 season. That's a long time ago. And, baseball, if you look at back in the 80s, was definitely a little more popular, a little more driven by younger folks than it is now. So I think it's going to be really big for baseball when this pitch clock is implemented, among the other rule changes. And again, if you want to learn about those, I talked about them a few weeks ago. But I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be really good for baseball. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Overall, I think that it is important to I'm sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here with my technical difficulties on my end because I'm the one who's using this. My mic stand my microphone just keeps dipping on me.
I see it.
I don't know what's going on here. It just decided that it doesn't want to stand up today, and I'm trying to put something into my notes, and I'm hitting the wrong buttons and all sorts of things. But anyway, I do think a pitch clock is needed. I'm glad that it's going to be here. I don't know if it's going to cut 25 minutes off of the games because you also have to think that they have a ton of sponsors, right? And so they have to hit their commercials, right? I don't like that you can only throw over to first base twice. I think that that's stupid. I think that's probably one of the dumbest rules that they're ever going to put into baseball. But I'm all for a pitch clock because, look, I've never been somebody who complains about the length of games. I love baseball. Yeah. I love knowing that I'm going to sit down at 7 o'clock and watch baseball till 10:30. I love that. I do complain. You had that Astros-White Sox playoff game last year. Mm-hmm. They've been playing for 3 hours. It was the 5th inning.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been playing for 3 hours, and it was the bottom of the 5th inning.
Right.
And I think that that's a huge problem. Every Yankees-Red Sox game, when both teams are competitive, takes 4.5 hours. That's an issue, right? And that's one of the reasons why they put the 3-pitch minimum, or 3-batter minimum in for relievers, is to speed up the process of the game because of stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know that we're ever going to see 2.5 hour to 2 hour and 40-minute games on average in Major League Baseball again. But you can get that number significantly under 3 hours. Yeah. And that's fine for me. The Orioles in their 3 complete games, I think they had a couple of games that were 2.5 hours long in that stretch. So totally okay with the pitch clock. I think it's a good idea. And look, I play baseball. I think if you listen to the show long enough, you know that I've mentioned it enough that I play baseball and I pitch. When I'm on the mound, I don't need time. I want the ball, get the ball back to me, and let me throw my next pitch. I'm ready to go, and I want pitchers in the big leagues to be like that. You know what you want to throw. You know the pitch you need to throw in this particular situation. You have the confidence you're going to get that guy out, then let's get to it. We don't need to wait 30 seconds between pitches.
I agree. I think my only concern with that, and maybe this is just playing devil's advocate here, but the arm care over an entire season of a guy just constantly going and going and going and having really no time to rest in between pitches. I wonder about how that may play out over 162 games where a guy just doesn't have enough time to, kind of reset his body before the next pitch. It may not be a valid argument because I don't think we saw...
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
We baby pitchers so much.
We
baby pitchers in Major League Baseball so much. Nolan Ryan was throwing 108 miles an hour in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And he was throwing over 300 innings.
He was.
And striking out over 300 guys. You don't have guys throwing 108 right now.
No.
All right? And there's concern over their arm. You're at 90 pitches through 5 in the third innings, you got to be out of the game. You've thrown 96 pitches through 7, you're done. Like, we baby people. We baby these players so much. They are professional athletes. Modern medicine, the technological advancements that we have in physical therapy and stuff like that, these guys should be at the peak of physical condition. Way better than what you had in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Stop holding their hands. Let them go pitch. People are going to get hurt regardless. And honestly, I think by babying somebody, you're putting more stress on their arm because there's a point I had in there, and I lost it. But basically, if you ever need them to give you a little bit of extra, their arm's not used to it.
Yeah.
You have to baby these guys now because their arm's not used to it. Let's stop holding their hands. And also, I think a lot of that has to go back to the high school coaches. High school coaches, they don't care.
No.
They don't. Dylan Bundy is a prime example. High school coaches do not care about the future of these guys. They only care about winning their next district title. And that's where, in my opinion, the main issue is with these guys' arms is because they overthrow their pitcher. All these guys that pitch in the major leagues were the best pitcher in their town.
Yes.
Right? Their high school coaches guarantee you. I guarantee you they were the workhorses, and they carried the load. They threw 90% of the pitches that entire season.
And a lot of these, travel ball programs, and especially the younger generations now, are throwing curveballs at like 7 years old. So it's certainly, I think it's a pattern. Once they get through high school and the youth sports, it starts to become pretty apparent early. They may have some arm injuries.
Yeah, the main issue for me is these guys that are coaching them at a young age, not what they're doing once they get to the professional level. So very good segment, Zach. I appreciate that. We got to catch a break. Today's show brought to you by the Ginsu Kamado Grill, which is the perfect ceramic tailgate or home grill to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all kinds of food. It is coming soon. You can get the details and reserve yours today at ginsugrills.com and use the code TAILGATE to get $100 off your order. While tomorrow's is rained out, every other Ravens home game this year, Mothers is throwing tailgate parties at Hammerjacks right next to the stadium on Russell Street. Come by starting at 9 a.m. and before, during, and after every Ravens home game. It's free to get in, and there's also an all-inclusive option for $49 with premium brand open bar and great food. Tickets and details are at hammerjacks.com, and while you're there, don't forget to stop by the Press Box Ginsu Grill's tent for free samples and contests. When we come back, we're going to do a new segment here on the Bat Around that we're calling the Bet Around. FanDuel is a big sponsor of ours, so we are incorporating a new segment weekly called The Bet Around, where we're going to talk about the line for the Orioles game and other important games, not this week, but other important games once the playoffs start, maybe some prop bets, maybe some futures bets. We'll get into all of that next. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Next is the payoff pitch around the league, followed by The Bet Around. All that and more next on The Bet Around.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
The Maryland Lottery presents Ravens' Greatest Plays. 2021, the game on the line. With 3 seconds left, the Ravens connect on an impossibly long 66-yard field goal to beat Detroit, the longest field goal in history. Another great Ravens play belongs to Touchdown Joe from Silver Spring. Joe scratched a Ravens scratch-off and won a top prize of $100,000. You could be next. Play Ravens scratch-offs to win instant cash or enter to win great second chance prizes. Please play responsibly.
See Olympic athletes in action as the nation's best horses and riders compete in one of the world's premier equestrian events at the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Academy, October 13th through 16th in Cecil County. Don't miss the breathtaking excitement of the dynamic cross-country competition or the elegance of dressage and precision of show jumping. There's also great shopping and activities, including a fresh food fest, corgi race, and a beer, wine, and spirits showcase. So come enjoy a beautiful fall day at the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory, October 13th through 16th. Learn more and buy tickets at maryland5star.us.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook Assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
All right. Wow, that's really loud. Was it that loud the entire commercial break?
Levels were about right. It always sounds louder for us, I think.
You know what? I feel like I ask this every week. I definitely say this
I have it pretty
every
low.
week after the second break. Welcome back to the Batter Round. It's time for the payoff pitch around the league, which is brought to you by the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now on the cover of both Smoker Profiles. Ravens tight end Mark Andrews' path to NFL stardom, from his late decision to play the sport full-time through having to overcome type 1 diabetes and more. Also inside, we introduce you to football players at Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan as the season is now fully underway. And everything you need to know for betting football this season is in this edition. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com. And now, the payoff pitch around the league. Jordan Lyles pitched into the 8th inning, allowing just 1 run on 4 hits while striking out a season-high 9, and Ryan Mountcastle had an RBI single in the first to ensure the Orioles' first non-losing season since 2016 as they handed the Yankees a loss 2-1. Cal Raleigh hit a walk-off homer hit a walk-off homer Friday night, clinching the Mariners' first postseason since 2001, ending the longest postseason drought in American professional sports, and eliminating the Orioles from playoff contention as they defeated the Athletics 2-1. JT Realmuto doubled and stole 3 bases to join Pudge Rodriguez in 1999 as the only catchers in history to hit 20 homers and steal 20 bags in one season. As the Phillies handled the Nationals 5-1 in Game 1 of a scheduled doubleheader, Game 2 was postponed due to inclement weather and is due to be made up as part of a doubleheader today, weather permitting. Nico Horner doubled and drove in 3 to back 7 innings of 1-run ball from Adrian Sampson as the Cubs took down the Reds 6-1. Looking to lock up home field advantage in the wild card round, the Blue Jays handled their business with home runs from Vladdy Jr. and George Springer, plus 6 shutout innings from Alek Manoah and a 9-0 thrashing of the Red Sox. Jose Ramirez homered and drove in 3 to back a quality start from Aaron Savale as the AL Central champion Guardians took care of the Central cellar dweller Royals, although they're only a half game back of the Tigers. Carlos Correa likely playing in his final games as a Twin, homered and drove in 2 as Minnesota down the Tigers 7-0. Jacob deGrom gave up back-to-back home runs for the first time since 2019, allowing 3 runs in 6 innings to take the loss despite 11 Ks and 0 walks as Atlanta climbed back into a first-place tie with the Mets with a 5-2 victory. Drew Rasmussen allowed just 2 runs over 7 innings, and Yandy Diaz delivered 3 hits and 2 RBIs to help the Rays clinch their 4th straight postseason appearance with a 7-3 win over Houston, who clinched a top seed in the AL with the Yankees' loss. Corbin Burns struck out 7 over 8 shutout innings as the Brewers shut out the Marlins 1-0 to stay just a half game behind the Fightin' Phils for the final NL wildcard spot. Albert Pujols hit home run number 701, and Jack Flaherty allowed just 1 run over 6 innings in the Cardinals' 2-1 victory over Pittsburgh. Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Taylor Ward combined for 6 hits, and Reed Detmer struck out 9 over 6 one-run innings to push the Angels past the Rangers 4-1. Yo Moncada drove in 3, and Eloy Jimenez homered to lead the White Sox over the Padres 3-1. Mookie Betts had 3 hits, and Cody Bellinger hit a 3-run homer as the Dodgers worked the Rockies 10-1. And finally, Evan Longoria turned back the clock, homering twice and driving in 5 to lead the Giants over the D-backs 10-5. Zach, what is on tap today?
Evan Longoria turned back the clock. I like that. All right, Phillies and Nats, 105 at Nationals Park. Kyle Gibson and Anibal Sanchez, your Baltimore Orioles, they'll take on the New York Yankees at Yankee Stadium as Judge looks for 62. 105, Austin Voth and Nestor Cortez, the former Oriole, go head-to-head. Reds and Cubs, Nick Lodolo, the lefty with a 3.75 ERA, and Drew Smyly, who we just talked about on the show, he's a 3.48 ERA, 2.20 at Wrigley Field. Red Sox and Blue Jays, Brian Bello versus Ross Stripling. Stripling would be a really good ad for the Baltimore Orioles at some point down the road. 3.07 at the Rogers Center in Toronto. D-backs and Giants, Dre Jamieson. He has a .98 ERA, making what looks to be his 3rd start of the season. 4.05 at Oracle Park. He'll face off against the lefty Scott Alexander. Athletics and Mariners, J.P. Sears versus Luis Castillo, the Mariners. The back in the playoffs, first time since 2001. 4.10 at T-Mobile Park. Royals and Guardians, Chris Bubich versus Zach Plesac, 6:10 at Progressive Field. That's another AL Central matchup. The Guardians are the champs of that division. Twins and the Tigers, Dylan Bundy, the former Oriole, against Drew Hutchison, 6:10 at Comerica Park. Phillies and Nats, Game 2 of that doubleheader. Noah Syndergaard versus Tommy Romero, 7:05 at Nats Park for Game 2. Marlins and Brewers, Edward Cabrera, be a really good ad for the Orioles there as well against Aaron Ashby, who's having a bit of a rougher year. 7:10 at American Family Field, Marlins and Brewers. Pirates and Cardinals, Luis Ortiz will take on Jordan Montgomery, 7:15 at Busch Stadium. Rays and Astros, Shane McClanahan, who has won 12 games with a 2.51 ERA. He'll take on Christian Javier, who has a 2.65 ERA, 7:20 at Minute Maid Park. The legendary Max Scherzer takes on Kyle Wright as the Mets battle the Braves, 7:20 at Truist Park. Dylan Cease, one of the Cy Young frontrunners with a 2.06 ERA, takes on Mike Clevenger as the White Sox battle the Padres, 8:40 at Petco Park. Cole Ragans takes the hill for the Rangers as Jose Suarez takes the hill for the Angels, 9:07 in Anaheim. And finally, final game of the night, Rockies and Dodgers, Kyle Freeland, lefty, versus the righty Michael Grove at 9:10 at Dodger Stadium.
Very good. Man, can you imagine? Wouldn't it be nice to live someplace where your team's playing baseball in October and it's still perfect baseball weather, like San Diego or LA?
If you have a good football team too, it's perfect. Like it's a great sports time in October when you have a great football team, baseball team playing playoff baseball. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, and I think that the Orioles and Ravens
next
can put
year,
Baltimore in that spot next year. This year already super entertaining for sure. All right, it's now time for our new segment on the Bet Around. This is called the Bet Around. The Bet Around is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. It is the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast where you can take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. So we're going to start out pretty simple here. The line for tonight's game, or this afternoon's game, with the Orioles and actually just about an hour and 10 minutes between the Orioles and the Yankees. O's are plus 190. Yanks are minus 230. So what does that mean? That means that if you bet $100 on the Orioles to win today's game outright, you win $190.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So you get your $100 back plus an additional $190, so it's a net of $290.
Yep.
Right? If you were to bet to take the Yankees, you would have to bet $230 at minus 230. You'd have to bet $230 just to win $100. So that's what that means, right? Do you follow, Zach?
Yeah, I follow.
Okay.
I follow.
Very good. Some prop bets for this afternoon's game. I'm sticking strictly with Orioles. With Orioles players to hit home runs today.
Okay.
Cedric Mullins plus 520 for a home run. Anthony Santander has the best odds at plus 480.
Okay.
Ryan Mountcastle plus 500. Adley and Gunnar are both at plus 600. However, I think that those odds have probably changed on Anthony Santander because he's not in the lineup today. So let's go back and let's take a look at this on the fly here. So we're going to go down and we're going to look at this. We're going to see more. And let's see to hit a home run where Anthony Santander's number stands now. Anthony, he's not even listed.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, I guess if he gets a pinch hit appearance, that would obviously change.
Yeah.
But, Yankee Stadium is one of those ballparks that's a pretty good bet to make because Yankee Stadium's small. Even though they're facing a lefty and they're not going to have a chance to really hit the short porch for the most part. Probably more righties in the lineup today. Still a good bet.
Rougned Odor is plus 900.
Okay.
To hit a home run. So you could bet $200 and win $1,800.
Yeah.
If Odor, I mean, you're talking about Odor who hits a ton of fly balls, right? Ton of pop-ups. He pops one up just enough on it, could get it over that short porch in right field.
Sure.
Ryan McKenna is plus 1060 to hit a home run today. You never know.
Against the lefty, having Nestor Cortez on the hill, I could see that.
And Cortez is a bit of a soft tosser,
yeah.
Which might work to McKenna's advantage. You never know. Now, Aaron Judge, the line for him, it's actually gone up since I put these notes in. The line for Aaron Judge to hit his 62nd home run today is plus 230. Bet $100, win $230. If Aaron Judge hits number 62 against the Orioles and their gassed pitching staff right now. I was going to look for an Orioles futures bet. I was going to try and see, maybe Gunnar Henderson's odds to win Rookie of the Year next year or the Orioles' odds to make the postseason. There are no odds on that right now, I guess, because this season.
Sure.
I'm sure you could find them somewhere, but on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, there are none. And we're sponsored by FanDuel, so that's what we use. There aren't any prop bets there as far as futures bets for the Orioles to make the playoffs. I do like, however, the World Series odds. I think that's the World Series odds are pretty cool. It's plus 1,000 if you guess the exact matchup of Yankees-Mets. So that's a cool one to bet on. You're also going to get, let's see, what else? I saw one that I think it was like Blue Jays over the San Diego Padres, and the number was
a fun World Series.
That would be a really fun World Series. Let's go down here and say World Series exact result. Toronto Blue Jays to beat. Toronto Blue Jays to where is it? I just saw it. Toronto Blue Jays to beat the San Diego Padres is plus 17,000. Plus 17,000. The Blue Jays were my pick to win the World Series.
Yeah,
this
same
year.
here.
Not win, but to go to the World Series and play the Dodgers. The Padres have a good pitching staff, and they've got a good lineup.
They do.
And they're in the playoffs, right? So, to me, it is not out of the ordinary to think that the Blue Jays, that two of the best teams in baseball, two of the best rosters in baseball could square off in the World Series with Toronto ultimately coming out on top. If you send out Alek Manoah, Kevin Gausman, and Jose Barrios in a 7-game series to face off against the Padres, I could totally see the Blue Jays at plus 17,000 to beat the San Diego Padres in the World Series.
And that's in no specific amount of games, correct? That's just
it's
outright.
Just outright. So I don't believe you can make these bets until Wednesday at 4:05.
Makes sense.
Because I guess they have to do the seeding and all that.
Right.
But starting Wednesday at 4:05, you can make the bet that the Blue Jays will beat. You put $100 down on the Blue Jays to beat the Padres in the World Series, and if it comes to fruition, you will win $17,000. $17,000. That is absolutely insane. That's absolutely insane. Look, I'm not one to just throw money around, but I could place a $100 bet for the Blue Jays to beat the Padres in the World Series and come out with $17,000 because of it.
I wouldn't hate $17,000. Wouldn't hate it.
I almost talked myself into a bet during golf season.
Okay.
And it was for, I want to say it was either for the Masters or for like the U.S. Open or something. I think it was the Masters. It was the Masters. And it was for like 3 or 4 very prominent golfers to finish top 40, top 30, top 20, and top 10. And it was like $100 when you put a $100 bet down and you win $2,000 if it hits. And it was plus 2,000 for that parlay. And I had to talk myself out of it. I was really glad that I did talk myself out of it because none of the things that I needed to have happen happened.
So I texted my friend, speaking of golf, about a week before the Masters, and he said, who do you think is going to win the Masters? I said, I think it's going to be Scotty Scheffler or Rory McIlroy, and they came in 1 and 2. I should have bet that. I really should have bet that.
Yeah,
but I didn't.
You wouldn't be sitting here doing the bet around today.
I probably wouldn't be.
You'd probably have to put a significant sum of money down.
It would have been
to not have to do anything else ever again.
I mean, Rory and Scotty are two of the favorites in every tournament, but still,
I love Rory.
Still,
I'm a Rory guy. Now that Tiger's gone, I'm a Rory guy. All right. Good first segment here on the Bet Around. As we familiarize ourselves more with baseball betting, these will get a little bit more in depth, more detail, and next week we'll be talking about playoff odds and stuff like that.
And during the offseason, we'll have a ton of time to dive into it because that's what the offseason is for. So.
Absolutely. Orioles banter, we're going to keep this short today. I do want to talk a little bit about Brandon Hyde real quick.
Okay.
A lot of teams, and you saw it with the White Sox. The White Sox got to the postseason in 2020, albeit in the truncated season. They're the next upcoming team. That roster is really, really good. They had 3 really solid pitchers in the offseason after 2020. They fire Rick Renteria. They bring in Tony La Russa to put them over the top. It didn't put them over the top. They got back to the playoffs and lost to the Astros in, I believe, the division series. Was it the division series or the ALCS? No, it was the division. It was
division series.
It was the division series.
Yeah.
They lost the Astros in the division series because it was
they didn't get far.
It was the Red Sox and the Astros in the ALCS. A lot of times you have a manager that's the face of the rebuild, and then once you're there, once you're back into contention, they bring in somebody who has more seasoning, who has that playoff experience. You have guys like Joe Madden and Don Mattingly who are available. Brandon Hyde. Look, everybody says that there's input from the front office in the lineup, but I'm sure that there is with a team that you expect to do more, right? I can't imagine that the input that Brandon Hyde is getting from the lineup, is getting from the front office, is saying, don't play Kyle Stowers against left-handed pitching. Rest Mullins, Santander, Rutschman, and Urias on the same day. There's no way that that's what the front office is telling him to do, right? And then I look at the bullpen decisions. I look at bringing Joey Crable in when he's been your worst reliever in 2 months, and you continue to bring him in even though he continues to fail you. I look at pulling a starter when they're cruising because they let somebody get on base, or you don't want them to go through a lineup 3 times. And I get that that's analytics. I understand that much. But I think there has to be a human feel. There has to be a feel for the game, a feel for what's going on, a feel for how dominant your starting pitcher has been to this point. And also being aware of the fact that your bullpen's been pitching a lot. They've been taxed. All these guys are pitching career highs in innings and appearances. Last night there was no reason to bring Felix Bautista in with nobody out in the 8th inning. There was no reason for that. You have DL Hall already in the bullpen. Bring him in. Now he comes in the 9th inning because it looked like there was a leg issue there with Felix Bautista. But why on earth do you need Felix Bautista to get you 6 outs last night? I know you want to win, but why do you need that? Why do you need him? Exactly. You don't. To me, these are decisions. Last Saturday, you didn't need Felix Bautista for a 5-out save.
Yeah.
You didn't need that. You're doing it and showing the other guys in your bullpen. Now, look, Jake Reed and Joey Crable and those guys, okay, I get that. DL Hall is one of your top prospects. You had an opportunity to get a win last Saturday and take the first 3 games in that series against the Astros and keep yourself in playoff contention by bringing DL Hall in to face the lefty with 2 outs in the 9th inning. And it's even more magnified when DL Hall comes in the next day and has the bases loaded and 2 outs to face Kyle Tucker and he strikes him out. It's even more magnified then. I don't understand using a guy for 6 outs when you don't need to. When you have, and it's not that you have, well, it's either him or Jake Reed. No, it was either him or DL Hall. You have an opportunity to get a win, and you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. And I talk about this because and somebody made a fair point. Your buddy on Twitter, was Chris Resitar?
Yeah.
He made the most compelling argument to me for Brandon Hyde is that next year he's going to have a more talented roster, probably a deeper bullpen, a deeper bench, and that's when you can really start to evaluate him. And I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact tweet. It was a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
But it was in a conversation he was having with me in a Twitter thread, and there's going to be more opportunity to see how Hyde manages with what we assume will be far better talent than even what they had this year. I don't know that he's the guy. I think he relies so heavily on the matchups. Kyle Stowers has 2 plate appearances against left-handed pitching in the big leagues. He's been hit by a pitch and he's hit a home run. And he's still not in the lineup against the lefty today, despite the fact that Brandon Hyde told us that if the Orioles weren't in playoff contention, Stowers would be getting his opportunities against left-handed pitching. So, Zach, I think you've kind of started to sour a little bit too. What are your thoughts on Brandon Hyde as the manager of the Orioles moving forward?
I will say the pitching definitely has bothered me in the past. I think that's something that especially with the short leash on starters, that really bothered me. More so prior to this year. I don't know if I noticed it as much this year because I was more upset with different things he was doing. The punt lineups, I hate it. Mm-hmm. But I do want the Orioles to get to the point where they don't have to have punt lineups like the Dodgers do, where you can throw out all your bench guys and they're still good enough to win you ball games. And I think the Orioles will get there soon, and I hope they get there. So I want Brandon Hyde to not be able to throw out punt lineups, but the fact that he does, and he does so often, I think really hurts the team. And that's when I really started to sour on him. I think, in August when they started to become serious in this playoff race, and he's throwing out lineups that simply don't give you the chance to win the game. And I know you got to rest guys, but you don't have to rest them all on the same day. Mm-hmm. I'd rather give, 75%, for 3 days instead of 25% for 1 day, if you know what I mean, like the strength in the lineup. I'd rather give a 75% strong lineup than a 25% for 1 day. You got to spread it out a little bit. You can't just simply punt 1 game away. I hate that philosophy.
I can't stand it. I can't stand it. And to have Austin Hayes batting 4th and Ryan McKenna batting 5th, what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
McKenna has 2 home runs all year.
Right.
And Austin Hayes has 2 home runs since the beginning of July.
That's the middle of the order we're talking about. I mean, that's...
what are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, someone said that, AJ, who comments on our show a lot, he said these are archaic matchups he's following. Brandon Hyde loves these archaic matchups, and Kyle Stowers is just a perfect example of why he should he should be evolving, and he should be saying, okay, let's take these splits that he put up in the minor leagues and give him a shot.
He had a 986 OPS against left-handed pitching this year. And the year before, 952.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? I'm sorry, 9:51. So what are we doing? And you have a short porch in right field.
Yeah.
You have a short porch in right field. You have Gunnar Henderson leading off, which, okay, I'm fine with. You have Cedric Mullins batting 6th. Kyle Stowers is on the bench. Why on earth would A, you not bat Kyle Stowers, and B, not bat him 4th today? Fourth or 5th.
I totally agree. And I think that something like as simple as splits should be considered and should be taken into account. And I'm not sure why he hasn't looked at that yet. But, the Blue Jays, they fired their manager. They got better. That's what AJ just commented, and he's completely right there. So I agree. I think that Brandon Hyde has definitely been a little bit of a liability, especially down in this late part of the playoff run. But I think inevitably he's the manager in 2023. And if he does a terrible job and things aren't going well, maybe they turn to someone else.
I look at Adley Rutschman. He's batting 3rd and he's DHing. He's Adley Rutschman. Yes, bat him 3rd. Keep his bat in the line by DHing him with Chirinos playing today.
Yeah.
But against left-handed pitching this year, Adley Rutschman's batting 179. He's slashing 179, 288, 274 with a 562 OPS.
Yeah.
Like, you're putting a 3-4-5 that doesn't give you an opportunity.
Right. Correct.
Now watch. All 3 of them will hit home runs today, right? But you have no Santander, who is close to a 300 hitter from the right side.
Yeah.
You have no Kyle Stowers.
So questionable. Why? Especially in the Santander front. I mean, he's been very hot as of late too. Very hot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Odor is playing. He's bat Odor 4th, a left-handed bat with power. And I don't actually want them to bat Rougned Odor 4th, but I would understand it
over Austin Hayes, maybe
a lot more than Austin Hayes and Ryan McKenna. This is the Hayes and McKenna 4-5 today. Hayes and McKenna 4-5 today. And again, they're out of it, right? Yeah. They have been eliminated from postseason contention. You want them to play really strong the final 5 games so that they can have the best record. Thank you. I felt like I was low. So that they can have the best record possible at the end of the season. This lineup is come on.
It's
man.
brutal.
Come
it's
on,
brutal.
And people are like, well, and I heard somebody, one of the Orioles guys, Orioles journalists or beat writers, whatever, making the excuse that, well, Brandon Hyde knows that he can bring those guys in off the bench in the middle of the game if the Orioles knock the starter out in the 5th inning. Okay, but you could also put them in the lineup to start the game
and have them for the entire game.
And have them for the entire game. It's taking Kyle Stowers out because of one left-handed reliever who's not going to throw more than an inning in the 5th inning.
Yeah,
and then having Jesus Aguilar pop out or fly out on the first pitch. Now he got a single later in the game, but I digress. I don't think it's a guarantee that Brandon Hyde's going to be the manager of this team next year.
Interesting. Okay.
I said that I think that we're undervaluing how much they might just be evaluating him with his lineup and roster decisions. I think that starting next year, you will see more hands-on from the front office with lineup input. I don't know how much. I can't believe that he puts lineups out like this, and the front office has an input on that. I can't believe that. I can't believe that Hyde, Elias, and Sigmundell will all be in agreement to post a lineup like they did today. I can't.
Fair enough.
I can't believe that's a thing. We'll talk about the postseason is going to start between now and our next show.
Yeah.
I don't know what the matchups are right now. I think they still have to work out seeding and all that, so we don't really know. But the AL playoff picture is set. You've got the Yankees, the Guardians, and the Astros as your division winners, with the Blue Jays, Rays, and Mariners as your playoff, as your wild card teams. The Blue Jays still have something to play for. They're playing for the number 1 wild card seed, so they would have all 3 games, if it needed 3 games, of that wild card series in Toronto. Who do you see coming through for the American League to make it to the World Series?
Whew. So early World Series prediction here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I did predict Toronto at the beginning of the year, but I see some things right now, and they've lost some pitchers, Ryu being out for the year, and they've lost some guys. I don't know if I feel super confident in them. Give me the Yankees. Give me the Yankees.
I think the Yankees are not
Okay.
getting to the World Series. I don't know that they'll get to the ALCS. I think that they've been strong recently. I don't think that they have the starting pitching to hold up.
Okay.
And I think that if you take Judge out of that lineup, there's a lot of holes.
So I think the Rays are the weakest here. I
Yeah.
think by a significant margin.
I think the Astros lineup is weak.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
When the Orioles played them, I was looking at their lineup and I'm like, there's a lot of
Yeah, some holes.
is Jose Altuve,
Alex
Alex
Bregman.
Bregman, and Yordan Alvarez, and then that's about it.
You're not wrong.
And
You're not
Kyle,
wrong.
Kyle Tucker's a good player, but he's not what he was last year.
Yeah, I think the same thing with the Rays and same thing with Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland has the pitching.
Yeah.
Cleveland has the pitching to get it done. Ultimately, I think I'm going to stick with the Blue Jays.
Okay.
The Astros playoff pedigree and their history has me really teetering on whether or not I want to take them.
Yeah.
But the Blue Jays were my pick, and I'm at the beginning of the year, and I'm sticking with it.
Okay.
I'm going to pick the Blue Jays to get to the World Series. The National League, it's going to be Braves and Mets, Cardinals, Dodgers, and Padres.
Yeah.
And the Phillies, who had a pretty significant lead for that third wild card, now down to a half-game lead over the Brewers. Now the Phillies have a doubleheader today, weather permitting. I think they hold them off. I think they're going to hold off. The Brewers have the pitching. The Brewers always pitch, and I never liked their lineup, but they have the pitching.
Woodruff and Burns and so many guys.
It would be so
Ashby.
Phillies. It would be so Phillies to collapse and miss the playoffs. It would be so Phillies.
See, I don't know what it is, but I have a weird amount of confidence in Philly that they're going to make the playoffs and actually go pretty far.
You think so?
I don't know why. I have a feeling.
I think that it's better for baseball if Bryce Harper is in the playoffs.
Oh, 100%.
I think it's way better for baseball if Bryce Harper is in the playoffs.
No doubt.
But they're going to end up having to play the number one wild card team, which is the Padres. No, it's going to be either the Mets or the Braves. It's going to be
most likely the Braves.
The Phillies. That's gonna be tough sledding.
Yeah,
and even if they get past that, then they're gonna have to play the Dodgers.
Look, I'm calling a Subway Series, World Series. I really believe in the Mets.
Mets, Yankees?
I don't believe as much in the Yankees as I believe in the Mets. I firmly believe the Mets are going to the World Series.
Yankees,
I firmly believe it.
Yankees, Mets is, as much as I hate to say it's good for baseball.
Yeah.
And Buck Showalter being in the World Series and facing off against the first team that gave him a shot as manager, that's good for baseball, and that's good for Orioles fans. Yankees, Mets, I could pull for that. I could pull for that. But or how about just anybody else and Mets? Because screw the Yankees. Anybody else?
I don't know. I on the back of Aaron Judge right now. I mean, he's the best player in baseball at the moment, and he's carrying them. I mean, even through a lot of injuries and a lot of rookies and a lot of guys who really haven't performed for them, he's such a force that I feel like he's going to be a big reason they get pretty far.
Yeah. So for Orioles Banter today, I did want to talk about free agents. We don't have the time for that. We'll push that till next week.
Sure.
Next week we'll talk about, you and I we'll both go over this next week. We'll both go over the free agents and the ones that we want the Orioles to sign. We'll start from the most likely. Oh no, we'll start with our pipe dream.
Okay.
We all know my pipe dream. We'll start with our pipe dream, and then we'll go down to the most realistic.
Sure.
Okay, so we'll do that next week on Orioles Banter. Today's show brought to you by... we'll save it for after the break. We're going to catch our third and final break when we come back. Take to Rake on the Bat Around.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Glory days, Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest Brewers platter, the Brewers sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
The Maryland Lottery presents Ravens' Greatest Plays. It was called the Mile High Miracle, a 70-yard touchdown pass against Denver with 30 seconds left to send the game into overtime. The Ravens eventually won, propelling them to the championship. Another great Ravens play belongs to Diane from Annapolis. Diane played Raven Scratch-Offs and won season tickets for 20 years. You could be next. Play Raven Scratch-Offs with instant prizes up to $100,000. And please play responsibly.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens tight end Mark Andrews' path to NFL stardom, from his late decision to play the sport full-time through having to overcome type 1 diabetes and more. Also, inside, we introduce you to football players at Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State. And we give you everything you need to know for betting football this season. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the demos, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
See Olympic athletes in action as the nation's best horses and riders compete in one of the world's premier equestrian events at the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Academy, October 13th through 16th in Cecil County. Don't miss the breathtaking excitement of the dynamic cross-country competition or the elegance of dressage and precision of show jumping. There's also great shopping and activities, including a fresh food fest, corgi race, and a beer, wine, and spirits showcase. So come enjoy a beautiful fall day at the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory, October 13th through 16th. Learn more and buy tickets at maryland5star.us.
All right, welcome back to the Bat-Around. The Bat-Around and Take to Rake are brought to you today by Press Box's Glenn Clark Radio, whose old music you hear playing is now the Bat-Around Break 3 music. But Glenn Clark Radio is and has always been the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Guys, watch the show every weekday from 10 to, even though you haven't been able to see my face there for going on 5 months now. Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys called up a new Ravens linebacker and Baltimore native Brandon Copeland, who had a sack last week. CBS play-by-play voice Ian Eagle, Hall of Famer Rob Woodson, and former Ravens defensive end Chris Canty. Find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com. I will say, Ian Eagle and a lot of these broadcasters, Ian Eagle, Jim Nance, Kevin Harlan, they are just high-quality human beings. They're just, as Sal Palantonio is like the nicest guy on the face of the planet. All these guys are just super nice guys, and they're always on Glenn Clark Radio, so go check that out. And now it's time to figure out take to rake. And guys, this one was not close. This might have been the biggest victory of the year. Zach took Adley Rutschman. I took Ryan Mountcastle. Adley slashed 172, 250, 310, 560 with a double, a home run, 3 walks, and 2 RBIs. Ryan Mountcastle slashed 286, 355, 393, 748, 3 walks, a double, a triple, and 3 RBIs. Ryan Mountcastle wins going away.
Good work, Adley.
Look, he's crapped the bed for me all year when I picked him, and he's had like his best week of the month every time you pick him. So you were due for one of these. I think I have I've won 2 of the last 3.
2 of the last 3.
I've won 2 of the last 3. I swear to you, I promise you, I am going to figure out the standings this week.
I think, yeah, it's the last week of the season. Sure.
You can hold me to it. I will figure out the standings as we enter the playoffs for Take to Rake. So we'll have our regular season champion. It'll be like fantasy football. We'll have our regular season champion, our playoffs champion, and then we will do a final one with the World Series. And the winner of that, I don't think we should do the winner of that is the ultimate winner. I think it should be who just has the most wins overall.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, which I guess you don't really need to break it up, but we're going to break it up anyway, just because it's fun.
Sure.
Anywho, final thought. My final thought is the Orioles clinching a non-losing season last night, but then the bittersweet reality that they got eliminated from postseason contention about an hour and a half after clinching their 81st victory last night. And for me, it always hits hard, especially when they have a good year when they're eliminated. I go back to like 2013 when they were officially eliminated from the playoffs, and it just really freaking sucked. Mm-hmm. It like hurt. Like you knew it was coming. You kind of saw the writing on the wall from the middle of August on, but you still held out that last sliver of hope. And then when it was finally taken away, it sucks. And you're like, well, now we got to go out and get them next year. And then the next year, the Orioles won 96 games and were one of the best teams in baseball.
Correct.
So maybe that's what happens this year. This season was a wild success. It was an absolutely wild success. The Orioles, you heard Ken Weinman allude to Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson as he sees Cal and Eddie in those two. And I think that's a perfect way to look at it. You have 2 cornerstone players who were both drafted in the same draft, and they've both been number 1 overall prospects in baseball, who are going to be on your team in your lineup, hopefully for the next 7 to 10 years, as Ken said. They should be adding this offseason. Next year, it's going to be off and running. Mm-hmm. It is a really exciting time to be in, perhaps more exciting than 2012 through 2016. It is a really exciting time to be an Orioles fan, and I know I've been highly critical of Brandon Hyde and some of the players and the way that they've performed down the stretch. But that doesn't mean that I'm not excited and happy with this team. It means that that when your team gets better, the expectations get higher.
Definitely.
And I have higher expectations for this team, but leave no doubt, I love what happened this year.
Yeah.
This year was exciting. It was thrilling. It's going to go down for me as one of my favorite seasons.
Certainly.
Maybe not top 5, but it's certainly top 8.
It'd be top 5 for me.
For you, but for me, I remember.
You've lived a little longer.
The 97 season.
Sure.
The 2014 season. Those are my 2 favorites.
Yeah.
Then the 2012 season. So maybe it's number 4.
Okay.
Maybe it is top 5. Maybe it's number 4 behind those. I had more anger and angst about this season than I've had in other good seasons for the Orioles, because to me this was the first time where it was obvious what needed to happen for them to make a playoff run.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, those things didn't happen.
Didn't pull it off.
But this season has been wildly successful, wildly thrilling, and we should all be happy and excited for what is coming next for the Orioles. It's like Michael I said, blue skies from here. It's liftoff from here. I cannot. I've never been this excited for an offseason, and I cannot wait to see what the future holds for this team, because for the first time in my life, I truly believe. No, you know what? That's a lie. 97, I thought the Orioles were going to win the World Series. And when the Orioles got to the ALCS and I saw that they were playing the Royals in 2014, I thought they were going to win the World Series. But I truly 100%, I think I know now that a World Series is coming. Okay. A World Series is coming. And that's my final thought here is we should be thrilled with what's about to happen in Baltimore, because it's going to be incredible.
I want to respond to a viewer comment. that I think is going to be a narrative the fan base pushes decently hard coming up this offseason, that Buck Britton should take over for Brandon Hyde as the manager of the Orioles. While I don't necessarily hate the idea, my pushback against that here would be that Buck Britton would be coming in the same scenario that Brandon Hyde came in, with no major league experience.
Not the
as
same
a manager.
scenario.
Well, same situation. I'm sorry.
Not same situation, because Brandon Hyde came in at the start of a rebuild, and Buck Britton would be coming in to take over a contending team.
That's not what I mean, though.
I know that's not what you mean, but
I mean that they neither of them,
the same experience level.
Neither of them have any major league experience managing the team. So I think it's hard to predict that Buck Britton, while he could be a better manager than Brandon Hyde. We don't really have any evidence one way or the other. I think if the Orioles are going to go out and get a Brandon Hyde replacement, it has to be a veteran, someone who's been around for a little while. Buck Britton, maybe he goes off and manages some other team. I don't know if that's the answer. I know that's going to be a narrative that's pushed really hard this offseason because people really like Buck Britton, and it's noteworthy that he coached guys like Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, and basically all of these guys who are coming up through the system, he already knows them. So that's a definite thing there to be noteworthy of. But I think they've got to get someone with actual major league experience. You're not replacing Brandon Hyde for someone who doesn't have any.
They're not going to get rid of like you just said. They're not going to get rid of Brandon Hyde in favor of somebody who has no experience.
Right.
If they're getting rid of Brandon Hyde, it's to bring in somebody who they believe puts them over the top to win a World Series. Right? They're getting a Don Mattingly or a Joe Madden, somebody like that, or a Mike Scioscia.
And I'm not.
They're getting somebody like Mike Scioscia. I don't even know if he has interest in managing.
I hope not.
But
I'm not a Mike Scioscia guy.
Neither am I. But there's no doubt that he has winning and postseason experience.
Yeah.
They're going. If Brandon Hyde's going to be replaced, it's not going to be for Buck Britton, and people need to come to grips with that. That's not what major league teams do. That's not what a Mike Elias team. What a team that you're following the Astros blueprint. Do you think the Astros would have fired whoever their manager was when they were terrible in favor of a guy with? Well, they might have. Did A.J. Hinch have managerial experience before taking over the Astros?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Why don't you look that up? But the Orioles aren't going to fire Mike Elias and bring in Buck Britton to be the manager. Now, I do know that
he did manage the Diamondbacks previously. Okay. Yeah,
I do know that the manager gets to pick his coaching staff. But if it's true that this year Mike Elias and Sig Mejdal had an input on every lineup that Brandon Hyde did, which I don't think that's true. I think they tell him players that they want him to play, but I don't think that there's a chance that they signed off on some of these lineups. If you believe that, then I have to believe that while Brandon Hyde can hire his own coaching staff, that they have input on who he can hire. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Buck Britton be part of the coaching staff next year.
I hope he is. This is nothing against Buck Britton. It's more just the principle of the fact that they're not probably going to hire a guy who has no experience for getting rid of Brandon Hyde.
There's no problem. They're not going.
They're not going to. And Brandon Hyde, again, 95% chance he's not gone anyway this offseason. Yeah. But it's an interesting thing to talk about for sure.
I don't think the chance is that high. I think that people keep saying to me,
okay.
And when I say people, I'm talking about people that I interact with on the Orioles Twitter, right? And they keep saying to me, well, no, but they picked up his option for next year, and he's under contract for next year. That means absolutely nothing.
I mean, yeah.
That means
sure,
absolutely nothing. People get fired all the time while they're under contract, and I don't know how you can be confident going forward with some of the decisions, but we're not going to get back into that, okay? Buck Britton could be the next big manager who wins 110 games for some team and wins multiple World Series, but they're not going to give him that opportunity with zero experience.
In Baltimore, that's not going to happen.
That's not happening here. It just isn't. Maybe that happens with the Cubs or the Nationals. That's not happening.
Really interesting discussion, though, for sure.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for the baseball portion of this show. Ravens coming off a big victory last week. What was the final score in that game again?
37-26.
37-26,
yeah.
That's right. The Ravens put up 38 points 2 weeks ago, 37 points last week. They have the number one scoring offense in the NFL. Yep. They have MVP frontrunner, in my opinion, in Lamar Jackson. The defense forced 5 turnovers last week. They signed Jason Pierre-Paul, who's probably going to play tomorrow. They're going up against the Bills at home. They're going to need to get pressure on Josh Allen. Biggest test of the year for the Ravens. Now, I think that last week We both kind of predicted. I think I predicted the Ravens to win something like 34-21 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you predicted something similar. I think you said like 34-17. And
something like
and
that.
maybe I said 37-21.
It was 34-17 last week.
Yeah, and I think I was at like 37-23 or
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. We were both pretty accurate with how that game went. It was a 2-score win for the Ravens last week. You got to give your prediction first last week. I'll give mine this week. I think that the Ravens have looked at everybody in football talking about the Bills all offseason, all training camp, and all through the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And how the Bills are the team to beat. Look what they did on Thursday Night Football to open the year against the defending champions. Josh Allen is the MVP favorite. And I think the Ravens are sitting there, and you're not hearing a word out of them. You're not hearing a word out of them. You're seeing Lamar Jackson play the best football of his life. And this is a former unanimous MVP. And he thinks he should be the MVP this year. They're talking about him as MVP, but Josh Allen is still in that conversation. And I just think that the Ravens have something for the Bills.
Okay.
I think the Ravens have something for the Bills. I don't think that they're going to blow them out, but I think they're scoring 40 points.
Okay.
So I'm going to take Ravens. I'm going to take Ravens 41, Bills 27.
Okay.
And when I say they're not going to blow them out, I think it's going to be a late touchdown by the Ravens to put the icing on the cake to make it a two-touchdown game. I'm taking Ravens 41, Bills 27. Zach, you said to me that you were nervous about tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm not nervous. It doesn't mean that I think that I don't think that the Bills can win. I think the Bills have a great chance to win tomorrow. I mean, they're arguably the best team in the AFC, even though that they had that. God, how do you have 40 minutes of time of possession and close to 500 yards total offense, and you only score 17 points and lose a football game, and you win the turnover battle?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't understand that. It's just like when the Ravens literally won in every single category, but lost against the
Miami.
Against Miami, ridiculous. But anyway. You said to me you're nervous about tomorrow. And I'm not nervous, and it's not because I think that the Ravens are just going to run away with this thing. I'm not nervous because Week 4 doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Week 4 doesn't matter. You look back at 2018. The Ravens won in Week 4 to get to 3-1. They were 4-5 after 9 games, and they needed to bring in... John Harbaugh was about to lose his job. Mm-hmm. It was reported he was about to lose his job. They go on to finish the season 10-6, win the division, and make it into the playoffs. 2019, in Week 4, the Ravens lost their second straight game. They got blown out at home by the Browns, 40-25. They didn't lose again the rest of the regular season. They clinched the first-round bye as number 1 seed in the AFC at 14-2. 2020, the Ravens, they won in Week 4 to get to, I believe they were 3-1, to get to 3-1. And they needed a 5-game winning streak at the end of the season to make the playoffs. Last year, the Ravens were 5-1. After 6 games. They were 3-1 after Week 4. They had a decisive victory in Week 4, and they missed the playoffs. Week 4 does not matter. I think the Ravens have already had their bad loss for the year, and that was against the Dolphins, a game they should have won handily. They've already had their bad loss. Whatever happens tomorrow, the only thing that's going to matter is if they and the Bills have the same record at the end of the year, and you need the head-to-head matchup. Week 4 does not matter. Nothing about Week 4 has ever said since 2018, since Lamar's been here. Nothing that's happened in Week 4 has had an impact on what happened the rest of the season. To me, it just doesn't matter.
Fair enough. You're not necessarily wrong, but give me the Bills 38, Ravens 27 in this game tomorrow.
Any thoughts on that other than just
no? I mean, I think the Bills have unbelievable pass offense with so many weapons and one of the best quarterbacks in football. And the Ravens' pass defense so far hasn't looked great. It just
worse
hasn't.
than football.
It's terrible. Marlon Humphrey's been excellent, but the rest of the crop of corners and Marcus Williams has been great. But outside of that, the secondary's really struggled. I mean, guys like Jalen Armour-Davis and Pepe Williams, they've really struggled to start off their young rookie careers here. So to me, I think the Ravens are going to get diced up in the backfield. I think Josh Allen's going to throw up for a lot of yards. He's going to put up like at least 450 and 4 touchdowns in the air. Josh
450?
I could see it.
450
against this. Yeah, 2 through 6 touchdowns against them, man.
Against 3 rookies.
Okay,
I mean, you've got Marcus Williams, You've got
this pass defense
Chuck Clark.
is horrible.
Marcus, they were way better in the second half last week.
They were, but it's Mac Jones.
They're still learning how to play together. But you've got 4 guys who are some of the best at their position in that secondary, and then you have a first-round pick in Kyle Hamilton who's getting better each week.
You're also looking at not Jacoby Myers, but Nelson Aguilar versus Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones versus Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I mean, they still gave up 26 last week. To me, this game, they're going to give up a lot of points to the Bills, and Josh Allen's going to have a day.
I'll do a side bet with you. I'll bet you $5.
Really? Okay.
That Josh Allen does not throw for 450 yards tomorrow.
Okay, well
he's not going to throw for 400. We'll say 400. I'll bet you $5 that Josh Allen doesn't throw for 400 yards.
I'll take that bet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that bet.
We'll shake on it after the show. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here on the Batter Round. Thanks to our guest, Stan the Fan Charles, for his weekly segment, and Ken Weinman from, I almost said Ken the Fan Weinman. Ken Weinman from Inside Access at 105.7. Always great when we get to talk with Ken about some Orioles baseball. Thank you to all of our listeners, all of our sponsors. Thanks to Zach Goodman for helping us, for being the glue for the show. And thanks